Ethan, come back now. Annabelle hadn't even finished her sentence. Ethan hung up on her. The moment the call ended, Annabelle heard Jocelyn's sickly sweet voice on the other end coo. Ethan, darling. Her hand clenched around her phone, the sound of the plastic case cracking in the silent room. She dialed again. Ethan rejected the call. She kept dialing, relentless. Annabelle, are you insane? Ethan's roar finally came through the speaker. You want a divorce, don't you? Let's talk about it. Some other time. Jocelyn isn't feeling well right now. She's just not feeling well, she's not dying. Ethan Hawthorne, if you want this divorce, you will get back to the Southwood Villa right now. Immediately. Otherwise, you can forget about ever divorcing me. The screech of tires cut through the night outside. Annabelle glanced at the time on her phone. He had covered the 20-kilometer distance in just 15 minutes, all to divorce her. After 3 long years, she hadn't managed to hold on to anything. Bang, the door was kicked open. Ethan stormed in, a thunderous expression on his face, and marched straight toward her. He slapped the papers in his hand against her cheek. Sign it now. Fine, but I have one condition. Ethan's brow furrowed as he looked at the woman who was suddenly pushing her luck. When he was forced to marry her 3 years ago, she had lived alone in this villa, never making a fuss. The only time she bothered him was in the beginning, when she would call every day to ask if he was coming home for dinner. The woman before him today was more detestable than he could have imagined. He tugged impatiently at his tie. What the hell do you want? Despite his foul attitude, she offered him a smile and a bowl of chicken soup. Have some soup. I've been simmering it for hours. Ethan didn't bother to take it. We've been married for 3 years, and now we're getting divorced. Can't you just indulge me this once? Just this one time? There was something so heartbreaking in her tone that, although Ethan was still scowling, he reached out and took the bowl. He downed it in one go. The temperature was perfect. There. Are you satisfied? Annabelle, stop wasting my time. The thought that he was so desperate to get back to Jocelyn sent a sharp, unbidden pain through her chest. Forcing back the bitter tears, she said, "Help me." What? So, Ethan Hawthorne could look surprised. To make sure he heard her clearly, Annabelle slowed her speech. I said, Ethan Hawthorne, help me, then I'll sign. Understanding dawned, and fury ignited in Ethan's eyes. He raised his hand and struck her hard across the face. Annabelle, how can you be so shameless? Sign it or don't. The thought of touching you makes me sick. With that, he turned and walked away without a backward glance. He hadn't taken more than a few steps when Annabelle grabbed his wrist. Her body heat radiated through his skin, igniting a fire deep within him. His mouth went dry. Seeing the faint smile on her lips, he remembered the soup and it all clicked. You drugged me, I did. So, Ethan, let's have some fun. She looked serene, but only she knew the agony it took to resort to such a despicable method just to sleep with the man she'd been married to for 3 years. But she wanted it so badly. She desperately wanted to have his child while she was still alive. The drug was potent. She knew Ethan couldn't fight it. Her hand slid across his cheek as she stood on her toes to offer him a kiss. He shoved her away violently. Her hips slammed into the corner of a table. Before she could even rub the ache, Ethan was on her, brutal and rough. Fine, Annabelle, I'll give you what you want. Is this what you wanted, Annabelle? Are you satisfied? Of course, I'm satisfied. At her words, Ethan let out a cold, cruel laugh. Oh, right, Ethan. You didn't agree to my proposal earlier, so this divorce I'm not doing it. Annabelle, how can a woman as wretched as you exist in this world? 3 years ago, you schemed your way into my bed. What are you trying to pull now? You've held the title of Mrs. Hawthorne for 3 years. Why won't you let go? Yes, she had held on for 3 whole years, hoping that, just once, he would come back and try to believe her. But his words were always laced with poison, and the kindest among them were, let's get divorced. She repeated her explanation out of habit. Tonight, I was the one who set you up. I admit what I did. But as for what happened 3 years ago, don't pin it on me. I did, not do it back then. She had been a victim too. But because everyone in the city knew that Annabelle Ainsworth was hopelessly in love with Ethan Hawthorne, shamelessly chasing after him, they all assumed the worst. So when reporters photographed them in a hotel room, disheveled and exposed, everyone concluded it was Annabelle's scheme. A scheme to use the pressure of public opinion and the Hawthorne family's reputation to force him to marry her. She could have 100 mouths and still not be able to explain the truth. Pin it on you? Ha! You sent me a text message saying that if I didn't come, you'd jump from the 28th floor with Jocelyn. I rushed over, and as soon as I entered the room, I passed out. When I woke up, you were lying next to me. You were the one who wanted Jocelyn dead so you could steal her position as Mrs. Hawthorne. You're telling me you didn't do it. Then who did? Me? If I said it was Jocelyn, would you believe me? Annabelle had always been careful with her personal information. She rarely let anyone use her phone. But on the day of the incident, Jocelyn had come to her, saying her phone was broken and asking to use hers to send Ethan a quick text. Jocelyn was her stepsister. She'd agreed without a second thought. Jocelyn later claimed the message was too embarrassing and deleted it before she could see it. Annabelle didn't think anything of it. Then, she drank a glass of water Jocelyn handed her and passed out. When she woke up, she was the villain who had schemed to get into Ethan's bed. Annabelle, if you're going to frame someone, at least pick a believable target. The day after that incident was supposed to be my engagement party with Jocelyn. If it weren't for your disgusting stunt, she would have been Mrs. Hawthorne long ago. Why would she set herself up? Do you think everyone is as stupid as you are? Stupid. Ha, she wasn't the only stupid one here. Ethan, have you ever once stopped to think, just for a moment, about how any of this actually happened? The bitterness in her heart was overwhelming, and she deliberately provoked him. Ethan, if I had really set you up back then, loving you as much as I did, why would I use a knockout drug? I would have used. Who knows what kind of drug you used? Who knows what other filthy things you've done? Ethan's sole purpose was to humiliate her, to trample on her dignity. Any explanation she offered would be seen as a pathetic excuse in his eyes. She forced a cold smile. You're right, so we should definitely make the most of tonight. Annabelle, you finally admit it. Just as vile as Jocelyn had said. In that case, he had no reason to hold back. The next day, Annabelle was woken by a phone call. The screen flashed with the word hubby. She answered immediately. I left the pills on the table. Make sure you take them. And the divorce papers, I suggest you sign them soon. Don't force me to go through the courts. Click. He hung up, and here she thought he was calling out of concern for his brutality last night. Looking at herself, disheveled and lying on the cold floor, she realized she was still too naive. Ethan Hawthorne could always find new ways to be cruel to her. She saw the white pills on the table. Annabelle picked them up and threw them straight into the trash. She looked at the divorce papers scattered on the floor, already signed with Ethan Hawthorne's large, imposing signature. She gave a helpless laugh. Ethan, I'm dying. Did you know that? You're about to be free. Are you happy? As she spoke, she sank to her knees on the cold floor, her words dissolving into choked sobs. A few days later at the hospital. Annabelle, what have you been doing? Landon Sterling, clad in a white doctor's coat, stared at the X-ray in his hands. The dark area on her tibia was growing. His eyes behind his glasses darkened. This won't do. You need to be admitted immediately. I'll arrange for you to go abroad. Just a little longer. It's not time yet. She wasn't pregnant with Ethan's child yet. Landon was getting angry. Annabelle, this is bone cancer. Of all the cancers, it has one of the lowest survival rates. Do you have any idea how much time you have left? You don't even care about your own life, come on. Let me take you abroad for treatment. Lanny, please, just a little longer. Just wait a little bit more, okay? She saw the concern in Landon's eyes. He was the one who had discovered her cancer. The day the results came back, he had told her she had about a year left to live. 1 year, that was enough. Enough time to carry a child for 10 months. But that meant the window to get pregnant was incredibly tight, which was why she had been so desperate as to scheme against Ethan. She didn't know if she was pregnant yet. She had to wait. She stood before him with a carefree smile, but she had called him Lanny. What could he do? Landon's brow was deeply furrowed. You fine, but you have 2 weeks at most. After that, I'll tie you to a hospital bed if I have to. Lanny, you're so good to me. What good is it if I'm good to you? You don't love me. You throw yourself at that scumbag Ethan Hawthorne like a moth to a flame. Annabelle tried to stand, but a stabbing pain shot through her leg, a pain that felt like it was boring into her very bones. She swayed, unsteady, and Landon quickly caught her. Just then, Ethan appeared, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, his hands in his pockets. He glanced coldly at the two of them, a storm brewing in his dark eyes. Annabelle, are you that desperate for a man? You're not even afraid of people seeing you? You have no shame, but the Hawthorne family does. The insults, sharp as poisoned darts, flew at her. She thought that after all the years of enduring his humiliation, his words could no longer hurt her. But her heart still ached. "Ethan, you're a bastard," Landon snapped, unable to hold back. He rolled up his sleeves, ready to punch him, but Annabelle grabbed his arm. "Landon, it's not worth dirtying your hands over someone like him." So, she'd found a protector and was now openly defying him. Ethan strode forward, standing before her like a wall. Remembering the slap from the other day, Annabelle flinched instinctively. He sneered, his voice dripping with ice. "What, you think I'm going to hit you? For a woman like you, it's not worth dirtying my hands either." Annabelle looked up at him, at the man she had loved for 10 long years. When she'd said, "not worth it," she had meant she couldn't bear to let Landon get hurt. But when he said it, it was pure mockery and contempt. She suddenly regretted it. Why did she have to fall in love with him? If she had never loved him, she wouldn't be in such agony now. His words made her clench her fists so tightly that her nails dug into her palms. "Anna," for a fleeting moment, a flicker of concern showed in Ethan's eyes. Annabelle thought his conscience had finally stirred, but in the next second, "Jocelyn, over here, are you okay?" Jocelyn, radiant in a limited edition Chanel dress, trotted toward them. Ethan rushed to meet her. "Be careful, you're going to be a mother now." "A mother?" Annabelle couldn't believe it. Her eyes fell on the paper in Jocelyn's hand. It was a pregnancy report, the very one she had always longed for. Annabelle laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. She had merely leaned against another man when she felt faint, and she was accused of ruining the family's reputation. But them. What was this? She struggled to keep her voice steady. "Did you two sleep together? Is the child Ethan's?" Jocelyn immediately started her act. "Annabelle, that day, Ethan was drunk, so—" "I wasn't asking you," Annabelle cut her off, her voice sharp with pain. She could endure Ethan not loving her. She could endure him insulting and tormenting her. But she could not endure him getting another woman pregnant while they were still married. She had so firmly believed that the Ethan Hawthorne she knew would never do such a thing. He was an illegitimate son himself, and after what had happened with Nathan Hawthorne, he would never create another illegitimate child, no matter how much he professed to love Jocelyn. That was why, for the past 3 years, he had relentlessly sent divorce papers to her email, using his cold indifference to pressure her into a divorce, all so he could give Jocelyn a proper answer. But she had been wrong. So terribly wrong. Jocelyn shrank into Ethan's arms as if terrified, whispering, "I'm scared." Ethan's heart ached for her. Seeing the wounded look on Annabelle's face only deepened his disgust. "Annabelle, what right do you have to be angry with Jocelyn? Her body is much more satisfying than yours. I find you filthy." "Ha, Ethan, do you think I don't feel pain?" Annabelle mumbled, her head bowed. Her voice was so soft that Ethan barely heard it, and what he did hear felt unreal. Even more unreal was what sounded like a teardrop hitting the floor. But when Annabelle looked up, her eyes held nothing but a mocking smile. "You win." She pulled a set of divorce papers from her purse. Unlike the ones Ethan had prepared, hers only had one condition. She would leave with nothing, severing all ties with him and his family. Annabelle signed her name with a flourish and tossed the papers at him. "Congratulations, Ethan Hawthorne. We're divorced." She said the words quickly, afraid that if she waited a second longer, her voice would break into a sob. One of the pages fluttered onto his face. Ethan picked it up. It was the signature page. The name Annabelle Ainsworth was scrawled and shaky, as if written by a trembling hand. He watched Annabelle's retreating back. Ethan felt a strange, sudden emptiness in his chest. After a long moment, his phone rang. He frowned when he saw the caller ID. "Dad." A sharp rebuke came from the other end. "Jocelyn is pregnant with your child. You have a lot of nerve." Hours later, on the way to the old Hawthorne estate. "So that's why you signed so quickly." It was a feint. "Annabelle, I really underestimated you." And to think, for a moment after she'd signed, he had actually felt guilty. As if for revenge, Ethan drove recklessly fast. In the passenger seat, Annabelle felt dizzy and nauseous. A sharp pain throbbed in her leg. She gripped the handle tightly. "Ethan, slow down, I wasn't the one who told him." He stomped on the accelerator, sneering. "Not you. Only 4 people knew Jocelyn was pregnant. You, me, Jocelyn, and Landon Sterling. You were the only one who left. Who else could have snitched?" Annabelle was tired, so incredibly tired. She thought a divorce would set her free, but even after she let go, Ethan still despised her. "Ethan, why won't you ever believe me? When I was clinging to the title of Mrs. Hawthorne, you didn't believe me. Now that I've let go, you still don't believe me. I bet you don't even believe that I love you." He took a sharp turn. Annabelle lost her grip and her head slammed against the window with a loud thud. Ethan didn't care, spitting out his vicious words. "Love. When my brother stabbed me and I was lying in the hospital on the verge of death, where was the you who supposedly loved me? Annabelle, the only thing you've ever loved is the title of Mrs. Hawthorne and my money, and to think, in his ignorant youth, he had actually considered falling for her." Thankfully, the knife wound from Nathan Hawthorne had opened his eyes to so many things. "Back then, I was kidnapped. And I also lost a kidney. A kidney I was planning to give to you." Realizing what she was about to say, Annabelle clamped her mouth shut. She had planned to keep that secret for a lifetime. She didn't want the people who cared about her to be hurt by it. Ethan's cold eyes stared at her. "Why did you stop? Kidnapped? Heh, what a convenient story." Annabelle thought he might believe her, but his next words shattered her completely. "You did come back from that abandoned hospital in the western suburbs. You probably staged the whole thing yourself, because you knew my kidney was injured and I needed a transplant. You were afraid you'd be a match. You were afraid you'd be morally cornered into donating a kidney to prove your love, so you faked your own kidnapping to get out of it. Am I right, Annabelle?" His eyes were like ice, deepening the pain in her heart. Her voice came out hoarse. "No, I was really kidnapped. Even now, thinking about it was a nightmare. See? Annabelle Ainsworth always had an endless supply of excuses, each one eroding the last of his patience. Ethan slammed on the brakes. Annabelle's head jerked forward, hitting the seat back, her heart seizing from the sudden stop. "Enough, Annabelle. Stop making excuses. Kidnapped? I wish it had been a real kidnapping. Then the kidnappers could have killed you. Then you wouldn't be alive to disgust me." His tones suddenly hardened. "I really wish you would just die." The Hawthorne estate. As soon as they entered, they saw Harrison Hawthorne sitting on the sofa, his face grim. Ethan obediently greeted him. "Dad, I don't want to talk to you. Annabelle, come with me to the study." Ethan shot her a venomous glare. As Harrison walked ahead, Ethan leaned in close to her. "You'd better not be planning anything. You were the one who wanted this divorce. Don't you dare try to slander Jocelyn." Before he could finish, Annabelle said flatly, "Okay." Ethan felt like he had punched a pillow of cotton. He noticed the swelling on her forehead and his brow twitched. 10 minutes passed. What were they talking about? He quietly approached the study, pressing his ear to the door to eavesdrop. Suddenly, he heard the sound of something heavy hitting the floor, followed by a loud thud. He shoved the door open to find Harrison collapsed on the ground, clutching his chest, his face purple. "That Jocelyn, that wretch, the child, you must get rid of it." Before he could finish, Harrison passed out. Ethan frantically dialed 911. Then he turned on Annabelle, grabbing her shoulders so tightly she could hear the bones creak. "What did you do?" His eyes looked like he wanted to devour her whole. Annabelle was in so much pain her voice trembled. I don't know. Dad, he took a phone call and then suddenly, Harrison had only said "I'm sorry" to her and seemed about to say more, but then the phone had rung. "Where's the phone?" "The phone, Dad smashed it." "Ha. Annabelle, your lies are pathetic. How could there be such a coincidence?" "Yes, such a coincidence. And it had to happen to her." As Ethan followed the ambulance out, Annabelle tried to go with him, but he kicked her away. "We're divorced. He's my father, not yours." The phone was smashed at the worst possible moment, the call history untraceable. Annabelle felt as if she had fallen into a bottomless abyss. She would never be able to climb out. Because of this, Ethan completely barred her from the hospital. She could only learn through Mr. Coleman that, although Harrison had survived the surgery, he remained in a coma. The doctors said his heart could stop at any moment, and even if he lived, he would likely be in a vegetative state. But there was still hope he could wake up. As long as there was hope, she would keep praying. "Mr. Coleman, thank you so much for your trouble." Looking at Annabelle's bloodless face, Mr. Coleman's heart ached. "Young madam, why can't the young master understand? You love him and the old master so much. Last night you donated so much." "Mr. Coleman, please don't say any more. You should go back. If Mr. Hawthorne wakes up, there will be no one to attend to him." Perhaps it was from the blood loss, but Annabelle felt dizzy and nauseous. "Young madam, are you all right? I'll go get the young master." Annabelle quickly grabbed Mr. Coleman's hand. "I have my pride. I don't want him to see me like this." She didn't want to hear him say this was just another one of her elaborate schemes. She was human. Though she smiled on the outside, she couldn't bear the pain he inflicted on her. "Mr. Coleman, please go back." Mr. Coleman walked back toward the VIP ward, sighing all the way. Yes, both Landon and Mr. Coleman could see how much she loved Ethan, but the man himself refused to believe it. Because Ethan had probably never cared about her at all. How strange. Why was she leaning against the wall, crying? It must be because her leg hurt so much. It must be, although Mr. Coleman still called her young madam, she had signed the divorce papers. She and Ethan were no longer connected. Her only choice was to return to the Ainsworth home. Well, who do we have here? Isn't it Annabelle? What's the matter? Ethan doesn't want you anymore? Oh, silly me. Ethan never wanted you in the first place. She had barely stepped through the door when Laura Larkin, Jocelyn's mother, began her taunts. Annabelle's mother had died in childbirth. Laura had married into the family later, bringing Jocelyn with her. The two of them were completely different people in public and in private. It was pathetic how obsessed with Ethan she had been back then. She hadn't even seen through their act. "It's Ethan who isn't worthy of her." Her father's voice cut in. Laura looked flustered and quickly forced a smile. "Oh dear, you're here. I was just joking with Annabelle. If you ever make a joke like that again, you can get out." Laura immediately shut her mouth and scurried to her room. Once inside, she dialed Jocelyn's number. "Jocelyn, darling, I slipped up. That old fool saw through me. He wants to kick us out. What do we do now? Isn't Annabelle divorced from Ethan? When are you going to marry him? Moms, don't worry. As for the old fool, we can just let him die. And Annabelle, Mom, what do you think this baby in my belly is for? Ha ha." The laughter was so chilling it made even Laura's skin crawl. But it was also perfect. Richard and Annabelle Ainsworth are both as good as dead. A few days later, her period didn't come. Panicked, Annabelle rushed to the hospital. She was just leaving the obstetrics and gynecology department when Landon caught her, snatching the report from her hand. "Well, isn't this exciting? Annabelle, you're playing with fire. Come on, we're going to schedule an abortion." "No, this is my and Ethan's child, the child I've longed for." Landon grabbed her hand and began dragging her toward the operating room. "Ethan divorced you, why are you keeping his spawn? Let his family line end with him. This spawn also has one of my eggs. Even if we get rid of Ethan's half, I should at least keep the half I'm nurturing." Landon adjusted his glasses. What kind of twisted logic is that? The logic of someone who wants this child. After learning she had bone cancer, she had desperately wanted to experience a real marriage with Ethan, even a fake one. But no matter how hard she tried, he wouldn't even give her the time of day. Now, her only wish that had come true was this child. How could she give it up? Even now, as her feelings for Ethan were dying, she would never give up this child. "Landon, I have 1 year. I can make it until the baby is born, so please just help me." "If you keep the baby, what about you?" Landon crumpled the report in his hand. Annabelle knew he was angry, furious even. But she had only ever cared about Ethan's feelings. She smiled. "It's fine as long as the baby is safe. I'm going to die anyway." Landon fell silent. How could he be so fixated on such a foolish woman? But he knew he couldn't win this argument. "You're planning to hide this from Ethan?" "Yes, I'm not stupid. I know he won't want this child. The Ethan of today would absolutely not want this child. Absolutely." "A child?" Jocelyn, who happened to be passing by and hiding behind a pillar, grinned from ear to ear. She couldn't laugh out loud, but thinking about what she'd just heard, she gloated inwardly. "Annabelle, get ready to go to hell with your child. And I'll use Ethan's own hands to send you there." Landon insisted, threatening to tell Ethan about her illness and pregnancy, that Annabelle had to be hospitalized for a checkup immediately. She couldn't argue with him any longer and finally agreed. But she had to go home first. The Ainsworth estate. As soon as she entered, she saw Jocelyn, legs crossed on the sofa, a malicious smile on her face. "Sister, your cheeks are so rosy. Could it be that you're pregnant?" The word sent a chill down Annabelle's spine. She instinctively covered her abdomen. "What do you want?" "What, are you afraid I'll hurt your baby? Why would I do that? I would never dream of hurting my dear sister. I only ever hurt myself, just like 3 years ago." Annabelle was stunned that she would admit to it so easily. So it was you. You were behind what happened 3 years ago. Why? You were about to marry Ethan. What more could you have possibly wanted? Yes, I was about to marry Ethan. What more could I want? But someone wouldn't let me have what I wanted. We're both daughters of the Ainsworth family, so why does everyone like you and not me? Why? So, Annabelle, I really hate you. I hate you so much I want to destroy you. Her words were laced with a terrifying malice. The house was too quiet. Annabelle felt a prickle of fear and took a step back, but Jocelyn lunged, grabbing her firmly. The cancer had weakened her leg, and Annabelle was no match for her. Jocelyn dragged her toward the top of the second-floor staircase. Jocelyn's lips curved into an icy smile. Annabelle, if you fell from a staircase this high, do you think the baby would survive? Annabelle panicked and begged, Jocelyn, please, don't hurt my child. Since you know I'm pregnant, you must also know I don't have long to live. I'll die after the baby is born. I won't get in your way. Please, spare this child. Jocelyn stared at her groveling sister for a long moment before she was satisfied. Sister, you're so forgetful. I already said I would never dream of hurting you. With that, Jocelyn threw herself backward and tumbled down the stairs. At that exact moment, the front door opened. Standing in the doorway was Ethan. It wasn't me, Ethan. It really wasn't me. Seeing Ethan walk toward her step by step, his face like that of a vengeful demon, Annabelle was terrified. More terrified than she had ever been. She was afraid she would lose the precious child she had fought so hard for. Ethan paid no attention to her words. He only cared about Jocelyn, lying on the floor. Jocelyn, are you okay? Ethan, my stomach hurts so much. It hurts like I'm dying. Our baby will be okay, right? Ethan, you have to save our baby. He saw the blood spreading down Jocelyn's thighs. His gaze was as dark as a storm cloud. He swept the now unconscious Jocelyn into his arms and shot a look at Annabelle, still standing on the stairs. You, just wait, then he rushed away, not looking back once. Annabelle's legs gave out, and she collapsed at the top of the stairs. She frantically called Landon. Landon, help me. Ethan never believed her. He certainly wouldn't believe her this time. Jocelyn had obviously done this on purpose. She had to get out of the country, escape to a place where Ethan could never find her. However, just as she arrived at the airport under Landon's arrangements, before she could even get through security, Ethan's men caught her. She was dragged all the way to the hospital and thrown before him. Annabelle, Jocelyn lost the baby. Ethan's voice had never been so cold. It wasn't me. She threw herself down the stairs. It has nothing to do with me. Annabelle kept protectively shielding her stomach. Ethan watched her ridiculous gesture with cold eyes. Yes, that's what Jocelyn said too. She said she was so happy to hear you were pregnant that she lost her footing and fell. She knew Ethan's words were a double-edged sword. The real torture always came in the second half. But that's exactly why, Annabelle, you disgust me so much. Jocelyn is protecting you, and what did you do to her? A life for a life, right? Let's have the demon spawn in your belly accompany Jocelyn's child in death. Drag her to the operating room. A venomous woman like her doesn't need anesthesia. Terrified, she tried to run, but the bodyguards caught her after a few steps and pinned her to the floor. She couldn't break free, could only repeat herself over and over. I told you it wasn't me, Ethan. Why won't you believe me? I swear it wasn't me, she screamed, fat tears rolling down her cheeks. The baby in my belly is your child. Too, how can you be so cruel? His child. Then why was Landon the first person she called? My child. Ha, a promiscuous harlot like you probably doesn't even know who the father is. You're just pinning it on me. I told you to take the pill that day. Seeing the nurses just standing there, Ethan's anger flared. What are you all looking at? Take her to surgery and get rid of that thing now. No, you can't let go of me, Annabelle struggled frantically. The nurses were at a loss and looked helplessly at Ethan. Annabelle scrambled over and dropped to her knees before him. Ethan, I'm dying from my illness. Please just take pity on me. Let me have the baby and then I'll die. I'll go and atone for my sins, okay? The truth didn't matter anymore. She stopped explaining. She would take the blame. She was dying anyway. He suddenly strode toward her and, raising his hand, slapped her across the face. The slaps Ethan had given her recently were getting harder and harder. Annabelle's head spun from the force of the blow. You put my father in a coma and made Jocelyn lose her child. Annabelle, what right do you have to keep this demon spawn? You're dying from an illness? Heh, I don't believe a single word you say anymore. Let me tell you, the child is just the beginning. I will make you lose everything you have, piece by piece." The look in his eyes, one that wished he could slice her into 1,000 pieces, was truly ruthless. Suddenly she laughed, a wild, unrestrained laugh. She remembered, during her freshman year of college, she had been crippled by menstrual cramps, squatting on the ground, the pain so intense she wished she could die. It was Ethan, dressed in athletic wear, who had picked her up without a care for the blood staining his clothes and carried her all the way to the hospital. Lying on the bed, she had faintly made out his face and realized he was the heir to the Hawthorne fortune, the boy who drove all the girls in school crazy. Her secret crush had appeared right before her eyes, and her love could no longer be contained. She had dived in head first. How could she have been so stupid back then, to fall in love with such a devil? "Ethan Hawthorne, I must have been blind to ever love you. You're right. Now that I don't love you anymore, why would I keep your child? Surgery, is it?" Lead the way, the nurses were momentarily stunned. They couldn't understand how the person who had been resisting so fiercely was now so cooperative. Because they didn't understand that, in that moment, Annabelle's heart had died. She could feel the pain, the piece of flesh that should have been part of her body being brutally torn away. The moment she felt the emptiness in her womb, she cried. She cried for her own powerlessness. She cried because she couldn't even protect a tiny, nascent life. When Landon rushed in, Annabelle had just come out of the abortion procedure. Her face was as pale as a sheet. She was squatting by a hospital bench, crying like a child. "Annabelle," Landon called out twice, but she didn't react, lost in her hysterical sobs. After she had cried her heart out, Annabelle finally calmed down. "I'll go explain to him. This is obviously Jocelyn's scheme. A few days ago, when Harrison Hawthorne needed surgery and the blood bank was low, you donated so much blood you passed out." She raised a hand, stopping him. "Landon, don't humiliate me any further. Ethan doesn't believe me. Nothing I say will make a difference. Besides, the baby is gone now, and I'm dying. What's the point of explaining? He'll never believe me anyway." Because when one person hates another, as Ethan hated her, they only remember the bad and forget any good that was ever done. Landon was silent for a long time. "Come on, I'll help you back to your room." "No, after what Ethan said, I'm worried about my father. Landon, take me home." "All right." For some reason, Ethan couldn't get Annabelle's final image out of his mind. Her face had been terrifyingly pale. Worried about the outcome of the surgery, he went out to look for her. He saw Landon with his arm around her, the two of them walking toward the exit. Ethan slammed his fist into a hospital pillar. He must have been an idiot to actually worry about Annabelle. Jocelyn had told him long ago that this woman was just like her homewrecker mother, promiscuous and fond of destroying other people's families. Why should he show any mercy to someone like that? Ethan picked up his phone. "Tyler, start acquiring a large number of Ainsworth Group shares. I want to bankrupt them." Jocelyn, who was hiding nearby and eavesdropping, covered her mouth to stifle her laughter. She wiped the smile from her face and walked toward Ethan. "Ethan, I'm so scared all alone." He comforted her. "It's okay, don't be scared. Your body is already missing a kidney and now you've had a miscarriage. Don't run around. Take care of yourself." An image of Annabelle's face flashed in his mind, irritating him. When Annabelle arrived home, she rushed to the study to find her father. As it happened, he was looking for her too. "Annabelle, what's going on? Why is Ethan Hawthorne buying up so many of our family's shares? Is this his revenge because you divorced?" The grievances between them were too many and too complex to explain. But yes, everything Ethan was doing was to get back at her. "Dad, I'm sorry. This is all my fault. Ethan is doing all this for revenge against me." Seeing his daughter looking so pale and frail, yet still trying to comfort him, his heart ached. He had failed her mother. Richard Ainsworth patted Annabelle's shoulder. "Let him have his revenge. The Ainsworth family started from scratch. If he takes it all, we'll just start over. My little treasure, don't cry." But Annabelle couldn't stop the tears of gratitude from falling. Back then, when everyone thought she had climbed into Ethan's bed, only her father and Landon had believed her. Now, after all she had suffered, they were the ones comforting her again. Laura stood downstairs, cracking melon seeds, watching the scene with a cold expression. "Ha! Such a touching father-daughter moment. Let's see how long it lasts." 7 days later, Jocelyn was ready to be discharged, and Ethan came to pick her up. Seeing the Ainsworth Group stock portfolio in his hands, she said sweetly, "Ethan, darling, I'm an Ainsworth too. How can you bully the family like this?" Bullying the Ainsworth family was just a way to make Annabelle cave and come begging to him, to make her apologize and say she was wrong. But even after the Hawthorne Corporation had completely swallowed the Ainsworth Group, Annabelle never once appeared before him. "Isn't this all for you? That woman is just too despicable." Jocelyn beamed, holding out her hand. "I knew you were the best to me, Ethan darling. So, about these shares," her intention was obvious. She wanted Ethan to give them to her. But Ethan didn't hand them over immediately. He thought for a long time. "Jocelyn, you're too kind-hearted. But since you've always been so generous, why don't you give the shares back to Annabelle?" For a moment, Jocelyn thought she had misheard. She had schemed this far, even sacrificed the baby in her womb, and Ethan still had a soft spot for Annabelle. Why? She forced a smile, but inwardly she was grinding her teeth. The next part of her plan, which she had intended to delay, she now couldn't wait to set in motion. A few days later, while Annabelle was out, Jocelyn carried a bowl of bird's nest soup and opened the door to her father's study. "Dad," she called sweetly, "I made this for you. Have a taste." Richard Ainsworth drank it without a second thought. A moment later, he swayed and collapsed to the floor. Jocelyn toyed with a dagger in her hand as she picked up the phone and dialed Annabelle. "Annabelle, Dad just collapsed." Annabelle had just finished a round of cancer treatment at Landon's suggestion. Her leg was throbbing with pain. Hearing those words, she fell to the ground, her phone clattering somewhere out of reach. She ignored the phone and limped out of the hospital, hailing a taxi and rushing home. She burst into the study and saw Jocelyn sitting in a chair, her feet propped up on the desk. Beside the chair lay her unconscious father. Annabelle rushed over, dropping to her knees to check on him. He wasn't breathing. A fruit knife was sticking out of his chest. Her eyes turned bloodshot as she looked at Jocelyn. "You did this?" Jocelyn smiled without answering, a silent admission. Annabelle screamed, crying, "He was your father, how could you do it?" "Father, he was your father, not mine. From the day we met, he gave you the best of everything. When you and Ethan were together all the time, I wanted to see Ethan just once, and he told me not to disturb you. But when it was my turn, when I was about to get engaged to Ethan, he actually came and begged me to give Ethan to you. What kind of father is so biased?" Growing more agitated, Jocelyn stood up and walked over to Annabelle, grabbing her by the hair. She leaned in close to her ear and hissed, "Ethan was mine. Why did everyone tell me to give him to you? Some begged, some forced me. Annabelle, who do you think you are? If she hated her, she should have just come after her. Why hurt other people?" Annabelle's gaze turned icy. She wrenched herself free from Jocelyn's grasp and slapped her across the face. "Jocelyn, I'm going to kill you." "Yes, I know. And I recorded it." After saying that, Jocelyn shoved Annabelle away, walked over to her father, and pulled the dagger from his chest. "Jocelyn," Annabelle wanted to lunge at her and stab her to death. "Don't worry, you will kill me. It will just be an attempted murder." A sarcastic smile played on Jocelyn's lips. Then she raised the dagger and plunged it into her own abdomen. Laura looked at her watch. Seeing that it was the time Jocelyn had arranged, she burst in, kicked Annabelle, who was about to lunge at Jocelyn, and shrieked, "Annabelle, you are so cruel it wasn't enough to kill your father. Now you won't even spare my daughter, you're a demon." Following Laura into the room was Ethan Hawthorne, who had been invited to visit Jocelyn. What a show! Annabelle understood everything now. Anna, before Ethan could speak, Annabelle screamed first. "I killed him," her cold eyes met Ethan's. "So, are you satisfied now? You pushed me to the point of murder. Are you happy now?" She lunged as if to stab Jocelyn again. Ethan stepped forward and grabbed her hand. He broke it. Along with her hand, her heart shattered too. Look, she had brought this all on herself. So, her father's death was her fault. If she hadn't fallen in love with Ethan, if she had protected her father better, things would never have come to this. So let the wicked roam free in this world. She would go to hell. Sentencing day. The surveillance equipment at the Ainsworth estate had been broken that day. The court's primary evidence consisted of the murder weapon and testimonies. Annabelle's fingerprints were indeed on the weapon. The recording contained her threat to kill. As for the testimony, Laura swore that she had personally seen Annabelle plunge the dagger into Jocelyn's stomach. When the judge asked Ethan, he was silent for a long time. He hadn't seen the act itself, only Richard Ainsworth and Jocelyn lying in pools of blood, with Annabelle, covered in blood, smiling at him before trying to stab Jocelyn again. Although he hadn't witnessed it, this woman was terrifying. Her actions were abominable. If he didn't stop her now, she would put Jocelyn in even more danger in the future. Jocelyn had lost a kidney for him, lost their child because of Annabelle's persecution, and was now lying in a hospital bed. He absolutely could not fail her. As for Annabelle, she had brought this upon herself. Ethan spoke. I also saw it with my own eyes. Throughout the proceedings, Annabelle sat in the defendant's box, her expression cold and detached, as if she were a mere spectator. Before reading the verdict, the judge asked, "Does the defendant have anything else to say?" Annabelle was silent for a long time. Just as the judge thought she would remain so, her gaze suddenly shifted to Ethan, and she spoke. "Mr. Hawthorne, if one day you learn the truth, if you realize what you've done to me and come begging for my forgiveness, I will tell you this: I will never forgive you. Not until the day I die." The court found Annabelle Ainsworth guilty of murder and sentenced her to life in prison. A few days later, at the hospital, Annabelle's words in court that day, and the despair in her eyes, had left Ethan's heart twisted in knots. Had he misunderstood something about that woman who was evil to the core? Impossible. "Ethan, darling," Jocelyn called his name a few more times before Ethan finally snapped out of his daze. "Yes, Jocelyn, what is it?" Jocelyn had noticed Ethan's distracted state for the past few days. Ever since Annabelle had been imprisoned, he had been like this. Her original plan was to let Annabelle die of her illness in prison, clearing her path for good. But seeing Ethan like this now, she couldn't stand it for another second. Annabelle had to die immediately. She coughed a few times, feigning weakness. "Ethan, darling, the doctor is talking to you. Miss Ainsworth's condition is very poor. In the past few months, she's suffered a miscarriage and an abdominal injury. Compounded by the fact that the injury was near her kidney and she only has one, it would be best to find a suitable donor for a transplant as soon as possible. Otherwise, it could lead to a series of complications that could be life-threatening." Laura started wailing by the bedside. "My poor daughter, it's all that wretch Annabelle's fault. Her mother stole my husband, and now she's come to harm my Jocelyn." Ah, as she cried, an idea struck her. "Wait, Annabelle and Jocelyn are sisters. Annabelle's kidney should be a match for Jocelyn. Ethan, give Annabelle's kidney to Jocelyn, she has two, and our Jocelyn can't wait, right, doctor?" The doctor, thinking of the large sum of money deposited into his account, nodded quickly. Ethan was silent for a long time before finally saying, "All right." Ethan drove to the prison. As he was led to the visitation room, he overheard the guards muttering, "That Annabelle is really something. All the male inmates are wrapped around her finger. Forget the inmates, even the guards give her special treatment. I saw a guard go to her cell late last night. Wonder what she's like. Whatever she's like, it must be good. Didn't you see Mr. Hawthorne is here in the visiting room? The ex-husband is back for more, probably can't get enough." Their voices were low, but the prison was quiet, and Ethan heard every word. The thought of Annabelle's debauchery in prison made his blood boil. Just then, Annabelle appeared. Dressed in a gray prison uniform, her face was bare and clean. He realized she was actually quite beautiful, the kind of face you couldn't easily forget. That must be why Landon Sterling had always hovered around her, irritating him to no end. "You seem to be enjoying prison life," he began, his voice dripping with sarcasm. The Annabelle of today no longer cared. "I'm sorry to disappoint you, Mr. Hawthorne." Landon worked tirelessly every day to make her life here bearable. She couldn't let his efforts go to waste. Besides, life in prison wasn't so bad, because in prison, there was no Ethan Hawthorne. Seeing Ethan's silence, she mocked, "What's the matter, Mr. Hawthorne? Have you discovered the truth so quickly? Are you in such a hurry to beg for my forgiveness?" Annabelle knew Jocelyn wasn't stupid enough to let Ethan find out the truth now. So that couldn't be it. Ethan still wore that same hateful expression. "This is what you deserve." "Ha, yes, I'm getting what I deserve, aren't I? My child is gone, my father is dead, and I have to spend the rest of my life in this sunless prison. Are you satisfied, Mr. Hawthorne?" Whether he was satisfied or not, Ethan couldn't say. But this time, he was here for Jocelyn's life. Jocelyn's kidney was injured, and she only has one. "So, Annabelle, you will give her one of yours. You owe her that." Annabelle burst out laughing. After everything that had happened to her, what debt could she possibly have left to repay? And Ethan thought she owed Jocelyn. What about what he owed her? Did he even know? It didn't matter anymore. Fine, I'll give it to her. She can have my life along with it. It was like giving him the kidney she had meant to give him all those years ago. But I have one condition. If you want it, you have to help me right now. Annabelle noticed that every time she said, "Help me," Ethan looked utterly stunned. But this time, he didn't slap her. "Ethan Hawthorne, I want Jocelyn to know that this kidney was conceived by you and me, rolling around in bed. I want her to live with this kidney for the rest of her life, feeling disgusted every single day." Ethan roared, "Annabelle, how can you be so vile?" Vile? She only had one kidney left. She was literally giving her life to Jocelyn. How was that vile? If you don't want it, fine. But if you dare try to take it by force, I'll puncture it myself before I let Jocelyn have it. Her words were so vicious that Ethan was filled with utter revulsion. Seeing Ethan's silence, Annabelle stood up and walked toward him, smiling. "Ethan Hawthorne, if you don't have the courage to do it, I can be on top. I'll still give her the kidney." She stepped in front of him and went to kiss his lips. This was, in fact, her first kiss. The last time she had schemed against him, he wouldn't have deigned to kiss her. The light peck was filled with bitterness. Suddenly, she found this kind of revenge tedious. She was a dying woman. What was the point of pretending to be strong? She smiled and prepared to leave. A hand cupped the back of her head, and Ethan's lips crushed down on hers. So, he was capable of loving someone that much, willing to go to such lengths for Jocelyn. She didn't know if this would hurt Jocelyn, but it certainly hurt her. His face was a cold, emotionless mask as he helped her straighten her clothes. "Satisfied?" he asked coldly. Her smile was laced with irony. "Yes. With skills like yours, Mr. Hawthorne, of course I'm satisfied. The doctor will be here later. Annabelle, don't you dare go back on your word." "I won't. Whoever backs out is a dog." His purpose achieved, Ethan turned and left without a backward glance. Annabelle stood frozen, watching his back as tears streamed down her face. This man would never show her an ounce of tenderness. Not in the courtroom, not in prison, not ever. He was determined to destroy her completely. And this time, he had finally succeeded. Leaving the prison, Ethan felt like he was going insane. He floored it, racing at 150 mph to the hospital, to his father's bedside. "Dad, what's wrong with me? She was the one who schemed her way into my bed. She was the one who tore me and Jocelyn apart. She was the one who treated my love back then like it was nothing. But now, I find myself feeling sorry for her." He muttered incoherently at Harrison's bedside, needing to vent all the emotions roiling inside him. Perhaps he was being too loud. Harrison's fingers twitched. Then his eyes fluttered open and he looked at his son. After a long moment, he spoke. "Ethan, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never should have." Once again, Ethan sped at 150 mph, racing from the hospital back to the prison. He had to see Annabelle immediately to stop the surgery. He would find another kidney for Jocelyn. He had to get Annabelle out of prison right now. He had found out. He had misunderstood her. Years ago, it was his father, Harrison Hawthorne, who had forced Jocelyn to give him up for Annabelle, which led to the hotel incident. Annabelle had been a victim that day, too. Stuck at a red light, Ethan grew frantic, slamming his fist on the steering wheel. His heart was pounding uncontrollably. What was he so panicked about? "Hello, I need to see Annabelle Ainsworth." "Annabelle Ainsworth?" the guard thought for a moment. "Oh, the one the doctor came for to take a kidney." "Yes." The guard's expression darkened. A terrible premonition seized Ethan. He grabbed the guard's collar. "What happened to her? What happened?" "Well, there was a problem with the surgery. She was sent to the main hospital for emergency treatment." "Emergency treatment? Why? It was just one kidney. Why would there be a problem? Did you torture her?" The guard bristled at the accusation. "You're here to see her, so you must know her well. Didn't you know she only had one kidney? Taking another would be a death sentence. Not to mention, she also had bone cancer." Sigh, bone cancer, missing a kidney. Ethan's grip on the guard slackened, his hands falling uselessly to his sides. He couldn't process any of it. He had to get to the hospital to get answers. Just then, the guard's phone rang. He looked at Ethan with pity. That was the hospital. Just now, the doctor announced that Annabelle Ainsworth, female, age 27, time of death, 23:09. Annabelle was dead. Ethan drove like a madman to the hospital morgue. He saw her body lying silently on a metal slab. He walked over and lifted the white sheet covering her face. Her eyes were closed, the corners turned down as if in endless sorrow, a sorrow so profound he couldn't bear to look. "Annabelle, get the hell up!" Ethan acted like a petulant child, shouting and making a scene in the morgue until a crowd gathered. But the woman on the cold metal slab did not wake up. Landon Sterling appeared at some point, dressed in a tailored suit, his handsome face frozen in a mask of cold fury. He looked at Ethan, collapsed on the floor, and sneered, "Ethan Hawthorne, don't you cry in front of her. You'll dirty the path to her next life." Seeing Landon approach, clearly intending to take the body, Ethan threw himself over Annabelle, refusing to move. Landon scoffed. "You two were divorced long ago. What right do you have to cling to her body?" He waved his hand and several bodyguards entered. "Mr. Hawthorne, let's part on good terms. Let her go, don't force my hand. I don't care if you get hurt, but I won't let Annabelle be disturbed by you even in death. Do you remember what she said in court? What, you think she'd forgive you just because she's dead?" Landon's words sent a chill through Ethan, colder than the body beneath him. He remembered her final, absolute rejection in court. His body slowly retreated. 2 bodyguards stepped in front of him. He could only watch as Landon carried Annabelle away. Suddenly, he remembered something. Wait, I never signed the divorce papers. Although they had both signed papers, they weren't the same copy. Legally, Annabelle was still his wife. Landon Sterling, the bodyguards moved to block him, but Ethan kicked one down and punched the other away, chasing after Landon all the way to the crematorium. He arrived just in time to see Annabelle's body being pushed into the incinerator, instantly consumed by flames. "Annabelle?" Ethan stumbled forward like an old man. If the staff hadn't restrained him, he would have thrown himself into the furnace. "Ha, you're a pathetic sight, Ethan. When Annabelle loved you, you treated her like dirt, wouldn't even look at her. Now that she's gone and doesn't love you anymore, who are you putting on the show for?" He was right. What was the point of regret now? Annabelle was dead, buried in Westwood Cemetery. Ethan had erected the tombstone in his name, as her husband. He thought that once he had uncovered the truth of everything that had happened, when his own time came, he would go find her and beg for her forgiveness. He looked at the smiling photo of Annabelle on the headstone. How long had it been since he'd seen her smile like that? He missed her terribly. On impulse, he dialed the number he hadn't called willingly in 3 years. The phone rang a few times, and then someone answered. Ethan cried with joy, shouting into the phone, "Annabelle, sir, I'm sorry, I found this phone." After handling the funeral, Ethan retrieved Annabelle's lost phone. An old iPhone 5, a gift he'd given her when she got her first job. She was still using it. It had a password. Ethan tried several combinations: Annabelle's birthday, his birthday, their wedding anniversary. None of them worked. Then he remembered a girl squatting on the ground and typed in a long, forgotten date. The screen lit up. The wallpaper was a candid photo of him, holding a basketball, wiping sweat from his face with a towel. He suppressed the ache in his chest and opened the contacts. He saw the name Jocelyn immediately. The call time was just a few minutes after Richard Ainsworth had been murdered. It was Annabelle's alibi. Boom. Something exploded in Ethan's mind. He had misunderstood her so much. So very, very much. Jocelyn, she was behind all of it. He had to confront her. He drove to the Ainsworth estate. After Annabelle and her father were gone, the house had become much quieter. The housekeeper moved to announce him, but Ethan waved her off. He would go in himself. As he walked into the front yard, he saw Jocelyn and Laura in the pavilion, laughing and chatting. Their father and sister were dead, yet they could laugh so happily. Ethan's steps faltered. That wretch is finally dead. Yes, and the old fool is dead too. Now the whole Ainsworth fortune is ours. Our Jocelyn is so clever. All those years ago, you hired people to kidnap that wretch Annabelle and had them cut out her kidney. Then you pretended it was your kidney and gave it to Ethan. Sure enough, as soon as Ethan recovered, he was head over heels in love with you. I was just helping my dear sister. She found out Ethan had a kidney problem and immediately went to get tested. When she was a match, she was dead set on giving him one of her kidneys. See, I just helped her out. The kidney inside his body was Annabelle's. Ethan stumbled, grabbing a nearby tree for support. A splinter dug into his hand, drawing blood, but he didn't feel it. He pressed his other hand to his chest, but it did nothing to ease the excruciating pain. Jocelyn and Laura continued their conversation as if no one was there. "Jocelyn, darling, you need to hurry up and have a child with Ethan. Then you'll truly be Mrs. Hawthorne." Ethan fought the urge to rush over and stab Jocelyn to death. That would be too easy for her. He would make her suffer everything Annabelle had suffered, piece by piece. He composed himself, stood up straight, tucked his injured hand into his pocket, and walked toward them, calling out affectionately, "Jocelyn." The sudden voice made Jocelyn jump. "Ethan, when did you get here?" His smile was still gentle. "Just arrived. I called your name as soon as I got here." "Oh," Jocelyn relaxed, putting on a pained expression. "I'm so sad about Annabelle. Even though she was still my sister." "Yes, I know you're hurting. I never got around to signing those divorce papers, so I had Annabelle's headstone erected in my name as her husband." "You're not angry, are you, Jocelyn?" "No, of course not." Jocelyn's face was a picture of springtime, but inwardly she was seething. Now that Annabelle was dead, she felt like a second wife. "By the way, Jocelyn, we're getting married soon. It's about time for a premarital checkup. Your body is missing a kidney, after all, and I've been worried. It's still early, let me take you for an examination. You just finished with everything, you must be tired. It's okay, I can go by myself." Jocelyn's heart pounded with panic. She hadn't expected him to bring this up. The kidney she'd given him was Annabelle's. Both of hers were perfectly fine, one checkup and she'd be exposed. "Jocelyn, you're too thoughtful, but I won't be at ease unless I'm there myself. Still, I am a bit tired right now. How about this, next week? I'll clear my schedule this week and we can go together." With him putting it that way, Jocelyn couldn't refuse. She could only nod, her mind already racing for a solution. 5 days, that was enough time. What was one kidney? As long as she could become Mrs. Hawthorne, she would cut it out herself. "Mr. Hawthorne, Miss Ainsworth has just contacted a small clinic to schedule a kidney removal surgery." After listening silently to Tyler's report, Ethan said, "Call the surgeon. Tell him to make sure Jocelyn Ainsworth wakes up during the procedure." "Yes, sir." Hanging up, he sneered. "Jocelyn, now you'll get a taste of the pain Annabelle felt when she lost her kidney." Jocelyn felt that something was wrong. As the doctor prepared the anesthetic, she asked nervously, "Doctor, there won't be any danger, will there?" "Don't worry, it's just a simple nephrectomy. It will be over quickly." She relaxed. The needle pricked her skin. She felt a wave of dizziness, thinking that when she woke up, the surgery would be over. Jocelyn was woken by sheer, unadulterated pain. She screamed, assuming the anesthesia had worn off. A cut on her body was bound to hurt. But then she realized something was wrong. The surgical light was blinding her. She was still in the operating room. What was happening? "Ah," she shrieked, feeling something move inside her. The pain was so intense she thought she would pass out. Number 3 scalpel. Preparing to remove the kidney. The surgery was still happening. "Doctor, stop, why am I awake?" The doctor's voice was calm. "Oh, some people have a high tolerance for anesthesia. They wake up faster than others. Unfortunately, Miss Ainsworth, you have such a constitution." "Stop the surgery, I don't want it anymore." "I'm sorry, Miss Ainsworth, but we can't stop. Your abdomen is already open, and the kidney is halfway removed. You will have to endure this pain whether we stop now or not." Jocelyn felt like she was dying. She gritted her teeth. Then give me another shot of anesthesia." But no one paid her any attention. Jocelyn felt something slicing away at her flesh, bit by bit. Cold sweat poured down her face. "Stop it, I'm the future Mrs. Hawthorne." Ah, blood-curdling screams echoed through the operating room. "Miss Ainsworth, the kidney has been removed. See. A very successful surgery." The doctor held the bloody organ in front of her face. One look, and she felt like she was going to vomit. Now that the kidney was out, the suffering would end, right? But in the next second, she screamed again. "Miss Ainsworth, we're starting to suture now. Please bear with it." The heart-wrenching screams resumed, eventually fading into silence. Jocelyn had passed out. 5 days later, it was the day she and Ethan were scheduled to go for the checkup. Early in the morning, she got a call from him. "Ethan, darling?" "Oh, Jocelyn, I have a meeting here. I can't pick you up. You go to St. Anne's Hospital first, I'll be there later." Jocelyn gritted her teeth against the pain and answered sweetly. Supported by Laura, she endured the agony and went to the hospital. But after waiting for a full 10 hours, there was still no sign of Ethan. As evening fell, she had no choice but to call him. "Ethan, darling, why aren't you here yet?" "Ah, I'm really swamped at work. How about this, Jocelyn? You go ahead and do the tests, then just show me the report. I'm so sorry." After hanging up with a forced smile, Jocelyn threw her phone across the room and screamed like a madwoman. Damn it! She had been forced to have a kidney removed because Ethan had insisted on being there for the checkup, and she wasn't confident she could trick him under his nose. And now, after she'd gone through with it, he wasn't coming. Still, it was probably for the best that he wasn't here. Wasn't Harrison Hawthorne a patient in this very hospital? "Mom, let's go." Years ago, Harrison had offered her $100 million to stop her from marrying Ethan. At the time, Ethan had only agreed to marry her because she had supposedly donated a kidney to him. Jocelyn could tell that even then, he still had feelings for Annabelle. She couldn't allow that, so she had accepted Harrison's offer, planning to kill two birds with one stone. Harrison doted on his son, but there was still some tension between them because of the incident with Nathan. He would never tell his son about the deal. It would be easy to frame Annabelle, and no one would speak up for her. Her plan had been a resounding success. She vowed to eliminate anyone who stood in her way. The two of them went to Harrison's ward. He seemed to be asleep, an oxygen mask on his face. "Mom, you go in and take off his mask. I'll keep watch." Laura hesitated. She had never actually killed anyone before. "Mom, hurry up, do you want to live a life of luxury or not?" If it didn't hurt so much to walk, she wouldn't have bothered Laura with this. After a long hesitation, Laura crept into the VIP room and, as Jocelyn had instructed, removed Harrison's oxygen mask. His breathing immediately became ragged and desperate. She panicked and rushed out. Ethan watched the live feed on his phone, his eyes as dark as storm clouds. "Tyler, has the nurse gone in yet?" "Don't worry, Mr. Hawthorne. She's on her way." "Is it done?" Laura nodded. "Yes." Laura supported Jocelyn as they prepared to leave. A nurse walked past, glanced at them, and then hurried into the VIP room. Relieved that she hadn't been suspected, Jocelyn's lips curved into a wicked smile. Just then, two men approached them. The leader stopped them and flashed a badge. "Hello, I'm a police officer. We received a report, and you are persons of interest in a murder investigation. Please come with us." Jocelyn began to tremble uncontrollably. At the police station, Laura and Jocelyn sat nervously, their eyes darting toward the door. When they saw Ethan arrive, they rushed to him. Laura grabbed his hand. "Ethan, you have to save us." Ethan's gaze was dark. He flung her hand away and slapped her hard across the face. "What did our family ever do to you that you would try to harm my father?" It wasn't me." "No." Ethan pulled out his phone and played the video of Laura removing Harrison's oxygen mask. "What do you have to say for yourself now?" "I had this camera installed to prevent Annabelle from trying to harm my father again. I never thought the real threat would be you." With the evidence irrefutable, Laura's legs gave out and she collapsed to the floor. Jocelyn's head throbbed. She had calculated everything, but she had never imagined there would be a camera in Harrison's room. What now? Sacrifice her mother? But this was her mother. "Mr. Hawthorne, I don't know what my mom was thinking. Maybe she was confused. Please let my mom go." "Let her go? For attempted murder? How can I let her go? Your mother is such a righteous person." She turned in Annabelle without a second thought. "I'm sure you can do the same, right, Jocelyn?" His words were laced with venom. She knew it was useless to argue. She shut her mouth and stood meekly to the side. A police officer approached with a file and cuffed Laura. "Laura Larkin, you are under arrest for attempted murder. You have the right to remain silent." The handcuffs clicked shut. Laura looked at Jocelyn, who kept her head down in silence. Laura lowered her own head and followed the officer away. After Laura was gone, Jocelyn leaned against Ethan. "Ethan, I never thought my mom would do something like this. I'm so sorry, so sorry." Ethan comforted her. "Don't be silly. Your mother did this, not you. You don't have to apologize." His words felt so gentle. From her position, she couldn't see his face or the poison in his eyes. The wedding between Ethan Hawthorne and Jocelyn Ainsworth, tentatively scheduled for May 1st, was not canceled. Tyler couldn't understand it. Seeing Ethan even accompanying Jocelyn for a wedding dress fitting, he couldn't help but ask, "Mr. Hawthorne, you saw what happened that day." It was Jocelyn who suggested the murder. Laura was just following her orders. "Why aren't you putting Jocelyn in jail too? Why are you still marrying her?" "Ha, put her in jail? That would be too lenient. She's a master manipulator. Even in prison, she wouldn't suffer much. It would be nothing compared to the pain Annabelle went through. Everything Annabelle tasted, I'm going to make her taste it too. Tyler looked at Ethan. The Ethan who said those words was the most ruthless man he had ever seen. 3 days later at night, Jocelyn called Ethan, asking to see him at the Hawthorne estate. Ethan agreed. Jocelyn, wearing a miniskirt and perfume and clutching a small pill, drove to the estate. As soon as she entered, Mr. Coleman greeted her. "Miss Ainsworth, you're here. The young master is waiting for you in his room upstairs." The implication was clear, and Jocelyn knew exactly what he meant. She teetered up the stairs on her 10 cm heels. Mr. Coleman watched her go with a cold smile. "Ethan, I'm coming in." No one answered. She felt her way toward the bed. She could sense someone there, could feel his masculine presence. She smiled to herself. "Finally, Ethan Hawthorne. This time, you're finally mine." In the past, she had always begged to be with him, but he had always refused, using the excuse that he didn't want her to be labeled a homewrecker. Only after the divorce could they be together properly. But Jocelyn had needs. She certainly wasn't going to stay celibate for him. So she had frequently visited certain establishments, and one of those encounters had resulted in a child. But a child was a useful tool for her future plans. So, one day, when Ethan was dead drunk, she had staged a scene. She pretended they had slept together, even leaving menstrual blood on the sheets to make him feel guilty and more inclined to take care of her. And by simply lying about the baby's conception date, it naturally became Ethan's child. "Ethan, I'm here," Jocelyn whispered, testing the waters. She found that Ethan didn't reject her. The next day, Ethan was gone from the bed. She endured the pain and went downstairs to find him sitting at the dining table, elegantly eating breakfast. When he saw her, he asked, "How did you sleep last night?" She wondered if he was joking. They had spent the entire night together. Worried that Ethan was just shy, she pretended nothing had happened and sat down to eat. Sure enough, Ethan was just being shy. Every time she went to his room after that, he never spoke. 1 month later, Jocelyn held the lab report from the hospital, grinning from ear to ear. She was finally pregnant with Ethan Hawthorne's child. This time, even if Harrison objected, she would be the undisputed Mrs. Hawthorne. She was ecstatic. She raced to the Hawthorne estate with the report. Seeing him on the sofa, she snuggled into his arms. "Ethan, darling, I have some wonderful news." Ethan hid his disgust. He had people watching her, so he knew what her good news was, but it wasn't the right time to hear it. "If it's good news, then wait until our wedding day to tell me. I want to hear it then." She supposed that was right. Her wedding to Ethan Hawthorne. It would be the wedding of the century. The whole city would know. And on that day, everyone would learn that she was carrying the Hawthorne heir. How exciting that would be. Seaside Villa. Landon Sterling looked at the woman reading a book. "Tomorrow is his wedding. Are you sure you're not going?" The woman, dressed in a simple white dress, said coldly, "My ex-husband is getting married. What does that have to do with me? Landon, I'm truly afraid of him. I never want to see him again." Landon gently stroked her hair. "Annabelle, you know, I love you best like this, with no trace of Ethan Hawthorne left in your heart." Annabelle smiled faintly but didn't reply, her hand resting on her stomach. The day of the wedding. Jocelyn was getting into her wedding dress with the help of the staff. "Does this dress feel a little tight to you all? It does seem a bit snug, but there's no time to get another one now." Jocelyn's head was pounding. Ethan had been with her when she chose the dress, and she had tried it on herself. There had been no problem. Why was it so tight now? She felt like she could barely breathe. But the staff was right. There was no time. The ceremony was about to begin. All right. She took a deep breath and let them help her into the dress. Just then, Ethan arrived, devastatingly handsome in a black suit that perfectly fit his tall frame. After the staff left, they were alone. Ethan smiled. "Jocelyn, we're about to get married. What was that good news you wanted to tell me?" "Ethan, I'm pregnant." She thought he would embrace her, but he didn't move. Instead, he looked at her with a strange expression, one that actually frightened her. Jocelyn didn't understand. But Ethan said nothing more, simply taking her hand with a smile. "Let's go. The ceremony is about to start." They stood together on a stage made of flowers as the officiant began the ceremony. It was time for the vows. The officiant asked, "Miss Jocelyn Ainsworth, do you take Mr. Ethan Hawthorne to be your husband? to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do you part?" She beamed. "I do." The efficient turned to Ethan. "Mr. Ethan Hawthorne, do you take Miss Jocelyn Ainsworth to be your wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do you part?" Ethan sneered. "I do not." The entire venue erupted. No one had expected the groom to refuse. Jocelyn looked devastated. "Ethan, darling, what's wrong? I'm carrying your child. Why are you doing this to me?" She truly couldn't understand why he would say no. "Don't call me that. My child, Jocelyn, you disgust me. I haven't touched you in months. How could we possibly have a child?" Boom. Jocelyn felt as if she had been struck by lightning. "That's not right. I went to your house, to your room. We were together." "My room? What a joke. With my father hospitalized, I've been busy with company affairs. I've been sleeping in my study. When did I ever go to my room to sleep with you? So on those nights, you weren't sleeping in my room, you were cheating on me in my room. Jocelyn, you're disgusting, just like your mother." The guests were all enjoying the show. Someone started gossiping. Like mother, like daughter. Years ago, Laura Larkin seduced Mr. Ainsworth knowing full well he was married. The homewrecker showed up with her illegitimate daughter, and the original wife died in childbirth. Tusk. The daughter is just the same. She was seducing Mr. Hawthorne before he and Annabelle were even divorced. Exactly, and now she's pregnant with some bastard's child. Maybe Jocelyn herself isn't even Mr. Ainsworth's biological daughter. The wedding of the century had become a laughingstock. Why? A horrifying thought occurred to Jocelyn. She looked at Ethan. "You did this on purpose, didn't you?" Ethan leaned in close to her ear and whispered, "Yes." His tone was dripping with sarcasm. Jocelyn snapped. She started screaming at the wedding that she would kill Ethan. Clearly having a breakdown, she was taken to a mental hospital. She reached her hand through the bars of her cell, waving at a nurse. I'm not crazy. Everyone who comes here says that." The nurse took out a ruler and slapped her hand hard. "Get your hand back in here, behave." "I'm not crazy, I'm really not." She wasn't crazy. That day when Ethan had whispered, "yes," in her ear, she knew. Something must have gone wrong when he came back from the cemetery that day and said he had just arrived. He must have overheard her and Laura. He had leverage on her, and so he had orchestrated this whole thing to frame her. That day, Ethan had also whispered, "Do you know whose wedding dress you're wearing? It's the one Annabelle wore when she married me." He had made her wear a dead woman's clothes. Looking at the venom in his eyes, she knew he was going to destroy her, to ruin her completely. And he had. That was why she had lost her temper and threatened to kill him. But it was just words. She hadn't actually done anything. And now she was locked in a mental hospital with no one to hear her screams. After several days, Jocelyn felt her sanity slipping. She thought she saw Ethan. Had he come because he couldn't bear to be without her? Ethan looked at the woman before him with utter disgust. If it weren't for her, he wouldn't have lost Annabelle. "Jocelyn, the filthy things you've done are truly sickening." "Ethan, darling, I was wrong. I shouldn't have done those things. But it was all because I love you to marry you. Please forgive me, okay? I lost a child because of you." "The child? That was your own doing." The thought that he had slept with her, that they had had a child together, made Ethan feel sick. "Ethan, darling, I'm really sorry. Please forgive me. You came to see me today because you can't bear to be without me, right?" Jocelyn tried to lean against him, but he kicked her to the ground. "Can't bear it. What a joke. I just remembered that there's still a demon spawn in your belly. You were the one who orchestrated the loss of Annabelle's child. Today, I'm going to let you taste that same pain." Hadn't she suffered enough? Besides, why should she suffer alone? "Ethan Hawthorne, you were the one who signed the consent form for the abortion, and you were the one who testified to send Annabelle to prison. How dare you blame everything on me now?" Yes, it was all his fault. That was why, after he died, he would go and atone to Annabelle. But if it weren't for what you did, would I have misunderstood her so deeply? The reason I hated her so much was because I cared about her so much. So, for anyone who hurt her, I will get revenge on her behalf. Ethan had no more to say. "Take her away." As she was dragged off, Jocelyn screamed, "Ethan Hawthorne, you're a devil." Yes, he was a devil. To have treated Annabelle that way. And yet she had stayed by his side for 3 whole years. Even after he took her child and her kidney, she had never cursed at him once. his Annabelle. After punishing Jocelyn, Ethan felt completely empty. When he returned to the Hawthorne estate, Mr. Coleman was still waiting for him. He helped him with his coat and then handed him a bowl of chicken soup. "You must be hungry, coming back so late. Have some soup. It's just cooled down." Ethan took the bowl and drank it in one go. The temperature was perfect. He felt like he was back on that day when Annabelle had handed him the soup. "Thank you, Uncle Coleman. This soup is delicious." The sudden thanks flustered Mr. Coleman. Remembering who had taught him this, his expression grew sad. "It's not me you should be thanking, young master. It was the young madam. She taught me how to make this soup. She said you always stay up late, and this soup is good for your stomach. She also said you always drink things too fast, so the temperature has to be exactly 40 degrees so you won't burn yourself." So, she had done so many things for him. Why had he never noticed before? Thinking of the young madam, Mr. Coleman couldn't stop talking. That day, when the old master was rushed to the hospital, the blood bank was low. It was the young madam who came to donate blood. She was afraid you'd be angry, so she told me not to tell you. If I had known she was sick then, I never would have let her donate so much blood. Never. As he spoke, Mr. Coleman's eyes grew red. Hearing this, Ethan swayed on his feet. She had done that too, and he was only finding out now. Of course, a gentle person like her, how could she have angered Harrison? It was Jocelyn who had staged the whole thing, making that phone call to provoke his father. He had learned from Harrison that he had been about to apologize to Annabelle that day. After all, Harrison was the one who had arranged things to prevent Jocelyn from marrying him, a fact that Jocelyn had twisted to her advantage. She had not only gotten $100 million, but had also successfully driven a wedge between him and Annabelle, making him believe Annabelle was a scheming, manipulative woman. And that day, it had been her first time. The child he had killed had been theirs. An unbearable pain seized Ethan's chest, a pain that wouldn't stop. He had been so terribly wrong. He raised his hand and slapped himself hard across the face. How could he have treated her like that? Now, he missed her so much. 5 years later, after being discharged, Harrison Hawthorne had gone abroad to retire. For the past few years, Ethan had thrown himself into his work. Only when he was working could he stop his mind from wandering, stop the pain of thinking about Annabelle. "Mr. Hawthorne, today is the signing of the agreement with the British corporation, Ethel. Who are they sending?" "Mr. Sterling, Landon Sterling." It had been a long time since he'd heard that name. The name Ethel reminded him that the Sterling family's influence in the city was second only to the Hawthornes. Ethel was their British enterprise, Landon Sterling. He hated him for no good reason. Ever since he met Annabelle at 19, Landon had always been by her side, which had always annoyed him. It had even made him act cold toward Annabelle. He was usually such a calm person. Why was he always so clumsy and irrational when it came to her? Thinking back now, it was probably from the first time he saw her, squatting on the ground, looking so weak. He had probably fallen for her then. And when he was deathly ill in the hospital, Annabelle hadn't come to see him once. That had made him despair of that love, which was why he had deliberately pursued Jocelyn, and why he had done such foolish things to her. Hawthorne Corporation conference room. Ethan checked his watch. It was half an hour past the scheduled time. For such a major signing, that Landon Sterling was half an hour late. Fine. Just then, the office door opened. "I apologize, Mr. Sterling was unexpectedly detained. I will be signing on his behalf." In this rivalry, Ethan always wanted to be one step ahead of Landon, so Landon's tardiness infuriated him. "Ha! Is Landon Sterling playing games with me? This agreement must be signed by him personally. Otherwise, the Hawthorne Corporation will immediately withdraw its investment and the partnership is off. Sir, it is indeed our fault. However, for Mr. Hawthorne to throw away the efforts of his own company because of our mistake seems rather irrational." The woman's voice was strangely familiar. He looked up. She was standing by the door, her face obscured by the light. She was just an agent sent by Landon, yet she spoke with such audacity. And her voice, it grated on his nerves for some reason. He rose from the leather sofa and looked at her. "Is this how your boss taught you to speak?" She remained standing, bowing slightly. "I don't need Mr. Sterling to teach me how to speak. I am merely offering a suggestion from the perspective of our company's best interests, Mr. Hawthorne." Sharp-tongued, like Annabelle, He didn't actually dislike it, and as she said, the partnership was beneficial to both companies. He couldn't let his momentary anger at Landon lead to a bad decision. He was always irrational when it came to Annabelle. He took a deep breath. "I'm busy, let's get this over with." She hurried to his side. He glanced over, curious to see what kind of woman Landon had sent. One look, the pen in Ethan's hand dropped to the floor. She bent down, picked it up, and handed it to him. "Mr. Hawthorne, is something wrong?" Ethan's voice was filled with a childish joy. "Annabelle, you're not dead, you're not dead." That face, the slightly upturned eyes like a fox, the high nose, the small mouth, it was his Annabelle. There was no mistake. Ethan was overjoyed. He stood up and swept her into his arms. She struggled. "Mr. Hawthorne, what are you doing?" "Annabelle, I've missed you so much." "I'm sorry, Mr. Hawthorne, you've mistaken me for someone else. I'm not Annabelle." But Ethan wasn't listening. He just held her tighter. A sharp slapping sound echoed in the room. Ethan looked up, his eyes wide with disbelief. He, the great Ethan Hawthorne, had been slapped by a woman, and he couldn't even be angry about it, because she was Annabelle. "I apologize, Mr. Hawthorne seemed to be acting irrationally. I had to use this method to help you see reality. I am not the Annabelle you speak of." She took a business card from her handbag. "Allow me to introduce myself. I am a British citizen of Chinese descent, Mr. Sterling's personal assistant, Sabrina Cole." Annabelle had her deadened heart to thank for this. It was the only reason she could face him so calmly after all this time. And yet, it was also what forced her back into his life. Ethan took the card. The name was indeed Sabrina Cole, but Annabelle's face was etched into his memory. He would never be mistaken. Her denial, it must be, because he had hurt her so deeply that she was afraid of him. "Annabelle, I was wrong about what happened back then. It was all my fault for believing the wrong person, for misunderstanding you, for killing our child. I'm not asking you to forgive me now, but please, don't pretend you don't know me." A small smile played on Sabrina Cole's lips, as if she found him amusing. "Mr. Hawthorne, I'm really not Annabelle. It seems I just bear a strong resemblance to her, which has caused this misunderstanding. Mr. Sterling has also mentioned that I look very much like someone he knew. You're identical. You are the same person. Mr. Hawthorne, it's a big world. With billions of people, is it so impossible for two to look exactly alike?" Her tone remained flat and calm. "Mr. Hawthorne, I will say it again. My name is not Annabelle. It is Sabrina Cole. And I heard from Mr. Sterling that the person I resemble is already dead. You saw her body cremated with your own eyes, did you not? So you must be mistaken." Ethan still didn't believe it. No matter how similar two people looked, they wouldn't share the same small gestures, like the way she was now tucking a stray strand of hair behind her ear. It was exactly like Annabelle. An idea struck him. He grabbed her hand. "Come on," she struggled. "Mr. Hawthorne, what are you doing? I have a way to prove you're Annabelle Ainsworth. Come with me." The Annabelle he knew was missing a kidney. Hospital. "Doctor, are you sure you didn't make a mistake?" The doctor was baffled. Who gets a physical exam like this, checking for the number of kidneys? Still, he was a doctor. "There's no mistake. This woman is in perfect health. She has 2 kidneys. Impossible. She has 1 kidney in my body," Ethan muttered to himself, staring doubtfully at the scan. "There are indeed 2 kidneys. You're really not Annabelle Ainsworth." She shook her head. "No." Sabrina Landon Sterling's voice boomed from down the hall. He stormed over and shoved Ethan away from her. "Ethan Hawthorne, let her go." He then pulled Sabrina into his arms. "Are you okay?" "Yes, I'm fine." Relieved, Landon glared at Ethan with fury in his eyes. "What were you trying to do, bringing my fiancé to the hospital?" Ethan stared at them in disbelief. "Fiancé?" He repeated the word, his eyes scanning them both, finally resting on Sabrina's slightly trembling hands. Seeing that, he had a million things to say, but in the end, he chose to leave. As he walked away, Annabelle let out a sigh of relief. She had overestimated herself, overestimated her immunity to Ethan. When he had brought her here to check her kidneys, she had been so nervous. Why did Ethan say her kidney was inside his body? A few days later. Prison. Jocelyn stared at the television. It was a news report about Landon Sterling's engagement. His fiancée's face filled the screen. Recognizing her, Jocelyn shot up from her seat, her eyes blazing with fury. "Annabelle Ainsworth, you're not dead." She went to the phone room and dialed a number she had long forgotten. Hello, we need to talk. Hawthorne Estate study. For the past few days, Ethan had been trying to figure it out. He must have forgotten something crucial. But he was still convinced that Sabrina Cole was Annabelle. The person in the morgue that day had indeed been Annabelle. But he had been in such shock, he hadn't even checked if she was breathing. Later, when he came to his senses and chased them to the crematorium, he hadn't gotten a clear look at the body being pushed into the furnace. And everything now was just too coincidental. It was as if Sabrina Cole had appeared before him on purpose. Was it for revenge? Ethan found that he was actually happy about that. Tyler burst in, forgetting to knock. Mr. Hawthorne, Landon Sterling and Sabrina Cole have announced their engagement. Ethan quickly opened his phone. The headlines were all about their upcoming engagement. He would never let her marry someone else. He grabbed his keys from the desk, forgetting his jacket. Tyler, send me Sabrina Cole's address. He had to get answers. As he drove, Ethan thought back over the past few years. Knowing Annabelle, if she had wanted revenge, she would have done it long ago. So what other reason could there be for her to come back now? Ethan raced to Sabrina Cole's downtown apartment, room 1801. The 18th floor was Annabelle's favorite number. He was about to knock when the door opened from the inside. Sabrina stood there in a simple white dress, light makeup on her eyelashes curled. She was beautiful. She looked surprised. Mr. Hawthorne? Seeing her bag, clearly ready to go out at 8 o'clock at night, Ethan's voice was tinged with emotion. Where are you going? She smiled at his rudeness. Mr. Hawthorne, I don't believe that's any of your business. She took a step forward, intending to close the door. Ethan blocked it with his hand. Sabrina didn't notice until the door wouldn't close, and by then his hand was already caught. Her heart skipped a beat. He didn't seem to feel the pain, just repeated in that same domineering tone, "Where are you going?" Sabrina found it ridiculous. What, has Mr. Hawthorne still not accepted reality? I am not the Annabelle you're looking for. Please stop harassing me. I'm busy. I'm on my way to see Landon. It was late, and she was dressed so beautifully to go see Landon. Even an idiot could figure out what that meant. The thought of her with Landon made Ethan lose all reason. He kicked the door open, grabbed her hand, and stormed into her apartment, slamming the door behind them. He pinned her against it, and his mouth came crashing down on hers. Sabrina's eyes went wide. She fought back, but she was no match for his strength. When he finally pulled away, she gasped for breath and, without missing a beat, slapped him. Mr. Hawthorne, would Annabelle approve of you being so cheap? Rejecting those who love you, only to shamelessly chase after those who don't. He had slapped her 3 times back then. Now she had returned 2. Fine, keep up the act. Ethan wouldn't let her deny it. He bent his head to kiss her again. Sabrina's expression remained calm as she pulled out her phone and snapped a picture of them kissing. Hearing the shutter sound, he stopped. Sabrina smiled. Mr. Hawthorne is interested in another man's fiancée. If this got out, I imagine it might send the recently recovered Chairman Hawthorne right back to the hospital. The person who could say such cruel things didn't sound like Annabelle, but Ethan was certain. He hadn't mistaken her. Why are you so insistent on living under another name? Is it to get revenge on me, to make me angry? Well, you've succeeded. I'm very angry now, Annabelle. Can you be yourself again? Mr. Hawthorne, you think too highly of yourself. Who do you think you are? I'll say it again. I am Sabrina Cole, not Annabelle. You can never repay what you owe that woman. And don't think you can do it through me. The more she acted this way, the more Ethan felt that she needed him, but was terrified of him confirming she was Annabelle. Why? He would find out. He had to make her admit it. Yes, she was so absolute in court. She said that if I ever discovered the truth and came begging for forgiveness, she would never forgive me, not until death. Well, she's not dead yet, so I have to do everything I can to atone. Just admit it, you are Annabelle Ainsworth. Ignoring her struggles, Ethan pulled her deeper into the apartment, and they both tumbled onto the sofa. Sabrina had no energy left to resist. She sneered, "Mr. Hawthorne, what are you trying to do?" Every word she said seemed designed to provoke him. It only strengthened his conviction. "I'm just confirming if you're Annabelle. I know her body best." His words were so suggestive that a blush crept up Sabrina's face. Seeing her so flustered, Ethan felt a flicker of heat and said deliberately, "Don't worry. If you're not her, I'll compensate you. I'll compensate Landon too." Her resistance ceased. Ethan Hawthorne, you are truly shameless. Far more shameless than she had ever imagined. This might sound unbelievable, but just as they say Annabelle loved me for 10 years, I was entangled with her for 10 years. That was long enough for me to know her, and these past few years have been long enough for me to miss her. So, I will try any method to prove you are her, even if it means ruining another woman. Fine. Since Mr. Hawthorne insists and I can't escape, let's make it enjoyable. Ethan could tell she was nervous, just like the Annabelle who had drugged him that day. A wave of sadness washed over him. Annabelle moved closer, intending to kiss him, but he pulled back. She moved forward again, but he pushed her away. He just wanted her to admit she was Annabelle. He wanted to atone, to redeem himself. This situation had spiraled out of his control. He didn't want her to kiss him with such despair in her eyes. Sabrina let out a cold laugh. Of course. You're never interested in what's offered freely, Mr. Hawthorne. You have to shamelessly chase after what you can't have. How cheap. But I look just like Annabelle. You originally mistook me for her. Are you sure you don't want this? She continued to undress. Ethan frowned, watching her. Finally, he bit out, Fine, Sabrina Cole, is it? You win. I'm leaving. He turned and stalked out of the apartment. Annabelle had never imagined she could actually win against Ethan Hawthorne. The Ethan Hawthorne who always had to get his way. She had an appointment with Landon at the hospital today. She got dressed again, grabbed her bag and went to leave, but the door wouldn't budge. She realized it had been locked from the outside. As for the key, she remembered it falling in the foyer when Ethan had pinned her against the wall earlier. Now, the key was nowhere in sight. It wasn't hard to figure out. Ethan had used her own key to lock her in. She hugged her knees and sank to the floor by the door. She had thought her plan tonight would work. But when she took the initiative, Ethan had backed down. And she had been prepared to go all the way. She had to have another child. Annabelle crouched by the door and began to cry, a profound sadness washing over her. Since returning to the city, she hadn't been sleeping well, haunted by dreams of the past. One moment, she would see Ethan killing her child. The next, Jocelyn murdering her father. And she, the unfilial daughter, could do nothing. She leaned her head against the cold wood of the door, trying to console herself. Annabelle, pull yourself together outside. Ethan stood holding her phone and her key, listening quietly. He lifted the key, about to slide it into the lock, but after a moment's hesitation, he turned and walked away. After leaving Annabelle's apartment, Ethan had Tyler look up Landon Sterling's schedule. His expression remained taut as he drove to the Four Seasons Hotel. He spotted Landon the moment he stepped into the lobby. Dressed in a silver gray suit, Landon was sitting, sipping a coffee, his eyes anxiously darting toward the entrance every few seconds. He picked up his phone to make a call, his impatience obvious. Annabelle's phone in Ethan's hand began to ring. He answered it. Landon's voice came through the line. Why aren't you here yet? Ethan didn't reply. He strode across the lobby with his long legs, sat down in the chair opposite Landon, and dangled Annabelle's phone in front of him. She's not coming. Landon's brow furrowed into a tight knot. Ethan was as infuriating as ever, always getting in his way. He gritted his teeth. What did you do to her? Ethan, you bastard. Wasn't it enough to destroy Annabelle all those years ago? Now you're going to hurt my fiancé? Ethan sneered, easily gripping Landon's hand that had grabbed his collar. His strength was immense, and he effortlessly pushed Landon back into his seat. Fiancé, I think Mr. Sterling has forgotten something. As long as Annabelle Ainsworth is alive, she is still my legal wife. Landon's heart lurched, but he forced himself to remain calm. Mr. Hawthorne, you seem to think anyone who looks like Annabelle is Annabelle. She's not. She's my fiancée, Sabrina Cole. Ethan pulled out his own phone, found a photo, and held it out. Landon stared at the image. It was from 5 years ago, a picture of him in his white coat, entering the detention center on the day of Annabelle's death. He had done his best to avoid the security cameras, but one had captured his side profile. Ethan's voice dropped, turning icy. You orchestrated her fake death, didn't you, Landon? You couldn't have her, so you used this filthy trick to separate us, turn her into Sabrina Cole, and make her your fiancé. What was your game? Yes, he had arranged the fake death. He had found out Ethan had gone to the prison, and after making inquiries, he learned Ethan's horrifying purpose. To take Annabelle's remaining kidney. He was furious. Although Annabelle never spoke of it, he knew she was missing a kidney. He was a doctor. Simple observation was enough to tell him. He understood Annabelle. He knew she had her reasons for hiding it, so he never exposed her. He'd even guessed where her missing kidney had gone. Back then, if Annabelle had lost her other kidney, she would have died for cert. So he had bribed everyone involved and arranged the entire charade. He made sure Ethan saw what he believed to be Annabelle's body being pushed into the crematorium furnace. He wanted Ethan to live with the despair of having pushed her to her death, knowing she only had one kidney left. While Ethan suffered, Landon had taken the pregnant Annabelle abroad. He had planned to propose once she had moved on from her past, for them to live out their lives overseas. But then, their son, Leo, was diagnosed with leukemia, and they couldn't find a suitable bone marrow match. It was what forced Annabelle to return to the city. The worst-case scenario was for her to have another child with Ethan, a child who could save Leo. He had secretly hoped Annabelle might choose to use him. A child of theirs would have worked too, but she refused. Even the fake engagement was something he had to persuade her into for weeks, arguing it was for Leo's sake, before she reluctantly agreed. And now, all his careful planning had been shattered by Ethan in a single stroke. He was seething. Landon roared, "So what if I arranged it? If it weren't for me, you would have killed her if I hadn't stopped that surgery. Do you think she could have survived without both kidneys? If it weren't for me, she wouldn't have made it through the bone cancer, Ethan. What right do you have to blame me for any of this?" Ethan was deeply agitated. He couldn't help but light a cigarette. He wasn't blaming Landon for what he'd done. He was jealous of it and tormented by his own powerlessness. He just wanted to know. After taking such great pains to get her away from my world, why bring her back now? Don't tell me it was just for revenge. After his last meeting with Annabelle in the detention center, Ethan had understood one thing. If Annabelle ever escaped his world, she would never, ever come back. So, he had briefly considered that Sabrina Cole truly was just a look-alike. And yet, Sabrina was Annabelle, the Annabelle he had thought about for 5 long years. Landon's tone was pure mockery. "Ethan, do you really think I'd tell you?" Ethan's expression was flat, but his smile was cold. "As if I care about getting the truth from you. I'll find it out myself. Starting with the attack on me all those years ago, I'll uncover every last detail. I only came to find you today to remind you of one thing. Annabelle is still my wife. Landon, don't you dare touch her, or else when I lose my temper, I can't promise what I might do." The next morning, Ethan turned the key in the lock. As he stepped inside, he saw Annabelle asleep on the floor of the foyer. In all the years he'd known her, he'd never seen her sleep. She was curled up like a kitten, looking utterly adorable. He gently scooped her into his arms, intending to carry her to bed, but the slight movement woke her. Her eyes opened, and she looked at him with a cold indifference. "Mr. Hawthorne, what exactly do you want?" She couldn't stand the sight of him. He brought a hot towel to wipe her face and arms. "Why were you so foolish, sleeping in the foyer? Even though your bone cancer is cured, it could still relapse. Look how cold you are." After everything they had been through, to actually receive concern from Ethan was so shocking that she forgot to deny being Annabelle. She just said coldly, "I don't need your concern." Just then, her phone rang. She fumbled around but couldn't find it. Ethan produced it from his pocket. Her eyes darted to the screen and saw the caller ID. "Baby." A wave of panic seized her, and she lunged for the phone. Her violent reaction made Ethan even more suspicious. He had confirmed yesterday that her contact for Landon was just Lanny. So who was Baby? "Ethan, give me back my phone." He was intensely curious. Right in front of her, he pressed the speakerphone button. A small, milky voice of a little boy came from the other end. "Mommy, you didn't come see me last night. I'm not happy." Ethan grew vigilant. "Whose child is that? Mr. Hawthorne, are you insane? He's my child. Who else's would he be?" She snatched the phone from his hand and spoke gently into it. "Leo, Mommy was just very tired and fell asleep. Don't worry, baby. I'm on my way to see you right now." She threw on her coat and headed for the door, but Ethan blocked her path. "I asked you, whose child is this?" Annabelle found his domineering attitude laughable. She stepped forward until her face was inches from his and smiled. "I am Sabrina Cole, Landon Sterling's fiancée. Whose child do you think it is?" He suddenly wrapped his arms tightly around her waist, his face even closer. "Annabelle, your phone password is the same as it was 5 years ago. You haven't even been able to let go yourself, so how can you possibly play the part of Sabrina Cole? You know my phone password. Yes, he knew. And knowing it was the anniversary of their first meeting filled him with a complex mix of joy, anger, and a dozen other emotions. So, Annabelle, I'm asking you again, whose child is this? Right now, Annabelle couldn't think straight. Why would Ethan know that date? It was as if their first meeting was special to him, too. She looked up at him. The veins on his forehead were bulging. He was clearly furious. But his reaction now, was he genuinely concerned about the child? Or was he, like before, creating a cruel illusion only to kill her child once more? This time, she wouldn't let him. That's right, Ethan. I am Annabelle. The Annabelle you trampled on and abandoned. What now? The misunderstanding is cleared up, and you expect me to forgive you. While Annabelle was denying her identity, Ethan had tried everything to make her admit it. But now that she had, he found himself at a loss for words, capable only of silence. Do you know why I used the name Sabrina Cole? Because the name Annabelle is a nightmare. She was too afraid of you, too desperate to escape you. She didn't want to be locked in your cage again, only to be brutally destroyed a second time. Large tears welled up and fell, one by one, from her eyes. A sharp pain pierced Ethan's heart, a pain that went bone deep. Annabelle hadn't wanted to say these things. She had simply wanted to save Leo and avoid any more entanglement. But she had overestimated herself and underestimated Ethan's shamelessness and his obsession with the name Annabelle. So, I came back for one reason only. I need your sperm to have another child. A child to save the one who is in the hospital right now. He's your child too, Ethan. Are you happy now? He knew he had hurt her deeply back then, but only now did he realize how deep that wound was, deep enough to be unforgivable. And yet, she had still given birth to his child. Ethan's voice trembled. My child? Yes, your child, Ethan Hawthorne's. Are you planning to kill him too, to kill our child again? Annabelle's emotions were spiraling out of control. She clenched her hands into tight fists. A pang of sympathy shot through him. He enveloped her fists with his hands, letting her sharp nails dig into his palms. Don't cry. We need to go see the child, don't we? Let's go to the hospital. The two drove to the hospital in complete silence. Ethan followed Annabelle to a VIP room. Inside was a 5-year-old boy whose features were a perfect mirror of his own. This was his child. Conceived that one night in prison. Had Annabelle been pregnant then? After meeting Leo, Ethan went to get tested for a blood type match. The results showed a successful bone marrow match. The hospital informed them that they could schedule the surgery as soon as Leo's condition stabilized. The moment she received the news, Annabelle felt that fate had a twisted sense of humor. Back then, in prison, she had acted out of spite, to anger Ethan and draw a final, permanent line between them. But it had resulted in a child. Having a child had made her life feel complete, and she'd wanted to escape Ethan and live well. But because of Leo's illness, she was forced to return to his side. She had waited for years, but a matching donor was never found. And now, Ethan's bone marrow was a perfect match. It was truly laughable. Seeing her standing there, lost in a daze, Ethan watched for a long time before walking over to her. Don't worry, he said gently. Leo is my son, too. I will definitely save him. He noticed her frail frame and the slight flush on her cheeks. He reached out and touched her forehead, his voice laced with alarm. You have a fever. I'm taking you to see a doctor. You don't have to. She was still not used to his concern. He ignored her refusal, scooped her up into his arms, and strode towards the consultation rooms, drawing numerous stairs along the way. Doctor, give her a full checkup. From the tips of her hair to her toes, I want everything checked. The doctors all recognized Ethan Hawthorne, one of the most powerful men in the city, and immediately arranged the examinations. I'm so envious, to be doted on by Mr. Hawthorne like that. Yeah, I feel like I could faint from happiness. The nurses' faces were filled with infatuation. Annabelle looked up at Ethan. His anxious expression was something she had never seen before. The old her might have been moved to tears, but the her of today was completely numb. A heart full of scars no longer dared to love. While waiting for the test results, Annabelle spoke. Mr. Hawthorne, you don't have to do this. Once Leo is better, I'm going back to the UK. I don't want to have anything to do with you ever again. Her tone was resolute. He didn't know if he should try to keep her or what he could possibly use to make her stay. Let's not talk about that now. The checkup took a long time. You're tired, get some rest. Annabelle truly hadn't slept well the night before. Coupled with her anxiety over Leo, the hours of medical tests had exhausted her. She leaned her head against Ethan's shoulder and drifted off. Ethan carried her to a hospital bed, gently stroking her gaunt cheek before pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. He watched her for a while, then went to find the doctor. There were still things that bothered him. She had bone cancer before, and she's missing a kidney. How much do those things affect her now? The doctor looked at the chart in his hand, his brow furrowing slightly. Mrs. Hawthorne's kidneys are perfectly fine. She must have had a transplant at some point. As for the bone cancer, given her current condition, I find it impossible that she could have survived it, carried a child to term, and lived for another 5 years. And right now, she shows no signs of rejection. What does that mean? The doctor thought for a moment. Well, sometimes, things like severe muscle strain can present symptoms that are mistaken for bone cancer. It's possible that your wife's bone cancer was a misdiagnosis. With modern medicine being so advanced, misdiagnoses were rare. The doctor was curious. Which hospital treated your wife's bone cancer? St. Anne's Hospital. Impossible, indeed. St. Anne's was a Hawthorne Corporation subsidiary, the best hospital in the city, staffed with top professors from around the country. The possibility of a misdiagnosis was non-existent. If it wasn't a misdiagnosis, then it was intentional. Ethan's brow tightened. Who would be so cruel as to tell Annabelle she was dying? He recalled their 3 years of marriage. She had always been quiet, keeping to herself in an empty house, never initiating contact. The day she had drugged him and asked for a divorce, was it because she had just found out about the cancer and wanted to leave him a child? The thought sent a sharp pain through his heart. He remembered something and immediately called Tyler. Tyler, find out who Annabelle's attending physicians were back then in the city. All of them? What do you mean it was only Landon Sterling? If that was the case, then everything seemed to make sense. To get Annabelle, who was already Mrs. Hawthorne, Landon had not only faked her death, but had, even earlier, designed a scheme to make her believe she had terminal bone cancer. The realization made Ethan want to kill Landon. He instructed a nurse to watch over Annabelle, then sped out of the hospital, driving recklessly until he reached the Sterling Group headquarters. Pushing past the secretary's protests, he burst into Landon's office. Seeing Landon sitting in his executive chair, Ethan rushed forward and threw a punch. Landon, look at the mess you've made. Landon adjusted his crooked glasses, let out a cold snort, and threw a punch back. Mr. Hawthorne, I don't recall doing anything to offend you. Ethan wiped a smear of blood from his lip. Landon, does Annabelle know what a hypocrite you are? You scumbag, what right do you have to say I hurt her? The one who hurt her the most was you, wasn't it? Why did you lie to her about having bone cancer? Why did you trick her into thinking she had a terminal illness and was about to die? Landon, who had been about to stand, staggered at Ethan's words. He had never thought he could keep this a secret from Ethan forever. Especially not from the Ethan who now treated Annabelle like the most precious treasure in the world. Still, he was shocked that Ethan had found out so soon. Since that was the case, there was no longer any need to hide it. That's right, Ethan, I did it. So what? She wasted 10 whole years on you, and she told me she was going to keep waiting. Even if she never got your love, at least she was still your wife. What a fool. 10 years, 20, 30, she didn't even care. It wasn't enough to waste her youth on you, she was going to waste her whole life. She only has one life, Ethan. I was helping her let herself go. If that were the real reason, Ethan wouldn't be so furious. He laughed coldly. Let herself go? Landon, you were only thinking of yourself, weren't you? It's funny, you know. Back then, when my men went to the airport to stop Annabelle, they just happened to catch her. If you had the same cleverness then that you used to hide her for 5 years, you would have whisked her off to the ends of the earth. The truth is, you just wanted her to give up on me, right? So that she would fall in love with you, Landon Sterling. Isn't that right? Landon roared. No, I was just trying to help her find happiness. Ha, help her. Why is it that every time you helped her, it just made me hate her more and made her hate me more? Landon, just admit it. You're a selfish man, too. All you ever wanted was to steal her away from me. But what a pity. Annabelle never had you in her heart at all. Landon swept everything off his desk in a rage, shouting, No. The more Landon denied it, the more it proved that every word Ethan said had struck a nerve. It was true, he had been the one to like Annabelle first. He was the one who bought her breakfast, who answered roll call for her. But why? Why was she so stubbornly devoted to Ethan Hawthorne? Why? Why couldn't it have been him? So he had to use every method he could think of to make her give up on Ethan. That day at the airport was deliberate. He hated it. He hated that she was carrying Ethan's child. So he had directed so much, arranged so many things, thinking that one day he would finally have her. But in the end, it was a complete and utter failure. Landon, just leave quietly. I don't want to be the one to tell her that the Lanny she respected so much also tried everything to hurt her. He didn't want her to suffer any more pain. He couldn't bear to see that wounded look in her eyes again. Hospital. For the past few days, Annabelle had stayed at the hospital with Leo, monitoring his nutrition as his surgery was scheduled to happen soon. As her heart began to relax slightly, she realized it had been a long time since Landon had contacted her. She tried calling, but his phone was off. Soon after, Annabelle discovered that Landon had unilaterally announced to the media that their engagement was off. Then, he had vanished without a trace. The only person who could make Landon leave without a word was Ethan. For the first time, she walked into Ethan's company as Annabelle. He seemed to have given prior instructions. When the company employees saw her, they all greeted her politely. Mrs. Hawthorne. The arrangement disgusted Annabelle. She pushed open the door to the president's office and walked toward Ethan, who was standing by the floor-to-ceiling window. What did you do to Landon? What did you do? I told him not to disturb our family of 3. You are Annabelle, my wife, Ethan Hawthorne's wife. I hate it when other men look at you. I hate the way Landon looks at you. He had hated it back then, and he hated it even more now. Annabelle was shocked he admitted it so readily. Who did he think he was, doing something like this? Ethan, don't go too far. That was between him and me. What right do you have to do that to him? In this life, the person she felt she owed the most was Landon. When she had been hurt by Ethan, she had always accepted Landon's care without a second thought, ignoring the fact that this man loved her too, and that she was hurting him as well. Landon had done so much for her and for Leo. He had even indulged her and returned to the city. How could she bear to see Landon get hurt again because of her own willfulness? She even started to cry. Ethan, give me back my Lanny. Seeing her still caring for that man ignited a fire of jealousy and anger in Ethan. But he had already made his decision. He didn't want her to be devastated by Landon's betrayal. He had to keep that secret. All he could say was a clipped, displeased, "What, so you're in love with Landon?" "Yes, I love Lanny. If it wasn't for Leo's illness, I would have been his woman long ago. You wouldn't have had a chance to do something like this." In front of Landon, Ethan could be full of bravado, confident that Landon would never have Annabelle. But to hear this love confessed from Annabelle's own lips, even if it was just to spite him, was more than he could take. His heart felt like it was on fire. Seeing his silence, Annabelle continued her tirade. "Ethan, you think that without Landon, after saving Leo, you can just talk about love with me? Are you even worthy?" Yes, he wanted to talk about love with her. For the past 5 years, he had been going insane thinking about her. Now that she was back alive, how could he not be ecstatic? But to hear her say she loved someone else drove him mad. All of Ethan's reason burned away. Seeing the woman before him, as defiant as she had been in the past, he just wanted to bite her. He couldn't control the impulse any longer. Looking at Annabelle, who had passed out from exhaustion after his rough handling, Ethan ran a hand through his hair. He found that when it came to her, he always lost his reason, acting like a single-celled organism. But he didn't regret it. Mental hospital. Jocelyn, dressed in a gray patient uniform, smiled radiantly. Nathan Hawthorne, long time no see. Nathan wore a black suit that made him look even colder. He looked a lot like Ethan. They were half-brothers, after all, but there was a more sinister glint in his eyes. A handsome curve played on his lips. "Jocelyn Ainsworth, you're still alive?" Jocelyn crossed her legs, leaned closer to Nathan, and smiled. "You're not dead yet, so of course I have to stay alive. Nathan, let's form an alliance. You help me kill Annabelle, and I'll help you get Hawthorne Corporation." He had no interest in women, only money. He was indifferent to Jocelyn's advances. "Jocelyn, are you an idiot? In your current state, how could you possibly help me?" She smiled smugly. "I'll tell you a secret that will let you take over the entire Hawthorne Corporation." A secret? Nathan's curiosity was piqued. What secret? Ethan Hawthorne is an illegitimate son. Ha, Nathan scoffed. You think I don't know that secret, so what if he's illegitimate? As long as Harrison Hawthorne designates him as the heir, he's the heir. I tried to use that to take him down once. And what was the result? I ended up foolishly stabbing him. Thanks to that dear father of his, Harrison, I avoided prison time. And now you're bringing this up again. Do you think I've lived too long? Jocelyn wasn't angered by his rebuke. My secret isn't just that. It's that Ethan is now so in love with Annabelle that he would announce to the world that he's illegitimate for her. Right now, for Annabelle, he'd be willing to give up everything. I, for one, am very confident of that. Now, whenever the weather was damp and overcast, Jocelyn could feel a dull ache where her kidney used to be. It had also made her realize just how much Ethan loved Annabelle. And love always made people weak and vulnerable. Nathan's eyes narrowed slightly. Are you really that confident? Of course. Since the day Ethan had lost control and touched her, Annabelle had given him nothing but the cold shoulder. But Ethan was relentless, constantly appearing before her, even if all he got were her looks of disgust. He held a brocade box as he walked to Leo's hospital room. He saw Annabelle sitting on the edge of the bed, reading a story to Leo. Her profile was beautiful. Ethan leaned against the doorframe, watching them quietly. Annabelle felt a searing gaze and turned her head to see Ethan in the doorway. She frowned. What are you doing here? I came to see my son and my wife. I brought you guys something to eat. Utterly shameless. Leo was just a child. Toys and snacks were enough to have him calling Ethan Dad over and over. But Annabelle was not a child. After Leo fell asleep, she walked out of the room first, heading to an empty stairwell. She looked at Ethan, her expression cold. Ethan, tomorrow is Leo's surgery. Let's stop this here. I don't love you anymore. Let me go. You're lying. You cooperated with me that night. Annabelle was thankful they were in the stairwell. A woman who's been deprived for a long time will cooperate with anyone. Ethan's cool eyes narrowed. So you're saying, Annabelle, that for the past 5 years you haven't had... He smiled, wrapping an arm around her waist. If you like it, I can make you feel even better. Indeed, Ethan's shamelessness knew no bounds. She realized that every act of resistance only amused him, like it was all part of a game. Her voice softened slightly. Ethan, we can't go back. The thought that I've only ever been with you, while you had a child with Jocelyn, that kind of pain, Ethan, you wouldn't understand. He did understand. Just like when he saw Landon had been with her for 5 years, he would feel a jealousy so intense it hurt everywhere. So, Ethan, if we want to be like a normal couple and grow old together, it can only happen if my dead child comes back to life, or if you've only ever been with me. At that moment, Ethan felt a chill spread to his fingertips. He released the arm he had wrapped around Annabelle's waist. Tomorrow is Leo's surgery. You must be nervous. It's late, you should get some rest. Yes, there was a thorn permanently stuck between them, an inability to forget the wounds of the past. The next day, at the hospital, today was the day of Leo's surgery. Ethan was also being wheeled into an operating room. He tried to take Annabelle's hand, but she pulled away. He could only look at her, hoping to see some favorable expression, but Annabelle's face was a stoic mask as she stared up at the ceiling lights. Leo and I will be out soon. Annabelle watched as the operating room doors began to close. Ed, she started to call his name, but felt someone grab her from behind. She was dragged back into the stairwell, and a cloth was pressed over her mouth. A moment later, she fell into unconsciousness. Several hours later, Ethan came out of surgery. Ignoring the pain, he searched the hospital for any sign of Annabelle, but after looking everywhere, he couldn't find her. Panic began to set in. He feared she was in danger. Even if she didn't want to see him, Leo was still in surgery. She wouldn't just leave. She couldn't have just disappeared. He took out his phone to call Tyler to investigate, but a call came through from him first. Tyler's voice was frantic. Mr. Hawthorne, Jocelyn was released from the mental hospital. The person who got her out was Nathan. Nathan, the brother who had once stabbed him. Jocelyn, the wretched woman who wanted nothing more than to see Annabelle dead. Ethan felt like he had been struck by lightning. He felt so unsteady he could barely stand. He was terrified that something had happened to Annabelle. He raised his hand and slapped himself hard across the face. Why had he just left Jocelyn in the mental hospital? He should have destroyed her long ago. The memory of Jocelyn hiring thugs to kidnap Annabelle and cut out her kidney made him so tense he slid to the floor. His voice trembled. "Tyler, use everyone you have. Find Annabelle for me." "You have to be fast," an idea struck him. "Right, those thugs who kidnapped Annabelle back then. Have you found out who they are? Find them and find out where they are now, Annabelle. You have to be okay." When Annabelle woke up, she found herself in a warehouse, her hands and feet bound. "Yo, little lady, you're awake." A few thuggish-looking men were leering at her, their eyes filled with malicious intent. Annabelle's eyes widened in recognition. She knew these men. Years ago, she had been kidnapped, and when she woke up, she was missing a kidney. It was these men, and now they clearly didn't recognize her. "Annabelle Ainsworth, long time no see." Annabelle looked toward the source of the voice. It was Jocelyn. Jocelyn stepped forward and slapped Annabelle across the face. "You wretch, why aren't you dead? Why are you still alive? Oh, I hear Ethan's been treating you so well lately. You must be so happy." Annabelle never expected to see Jocelyn again, her disgusting sister. "Jocelyn, you killed my child, you killed my father. What more could you possibly want? What are you trying to do now?" Jocelyn grabbed her chin, looking down at her with a twisted expression. "What do I want? I want you to die. I should have made sure you died back then." Remembering what Ethan had said, that her kidney was inside his body, and connecting it with the present situation, Annabelle understood. 8 years ago, you hired these men to kidnap me, cut out my kidney, and then passed it off as your own to give to Ethan. You did all of it. "That's right, I did all of it." The moment Jocelyn admitted it, Annabelle finally understood that from a very early age, her own sister had wanted her dead. She had actually been so happy to have a sister, but the feeling was clearly not mutual. Jocelyn suddenly lifted her shirt, pointing to a scar on her abdomen. Her voice was vicious. "Do you know? Annabelle, do you know how Ethan retaliated against me for you? It was all him. I had a kidney removed. My mother was sent to prison. He rejected me at our wedding. I was ridiculed by the whole world, and I was locked up in a mental hospital. And whose fault was all of this? Yours." Annabelle was stunned that Ethan had done so much for her. She also realized that Jocelyn's moral compass was completely broken. It was she who had used despicable means to steal Ethan, who had framed her, who had caused their father's death, who had sent her to prison. And now she saw herself as the victim. Her eyes filled with scorn as she glared at Jocelyn and let out a cold laugh. "My darling Ethan, he did a beautiful job." Jocelyn was incensed. She raised her hand to slap Annabelle again and was about to kick her when Nathan stepped forward and grabbed her arm. "If you injure her too badly, Ethan will want to take us all down with him." "Nathan?" Annabelle suddenly understood the true purpose of this kidnapping. "What are you planning to do to Ethan?" For the sake of the Hawthorne Corporation, Nathan had always been scheming against Ethan. He had even stabbed him once. Thinking back now, if it hadn't been for that stabbing, she and Ethan wouldn't have become strangers, and things wouldn't have turned out this way. "Ethan, you say his name so sweetly. If I recall correctly, he's the one who aborted your child and testified against you in court. And you still care about him? Annabelle, are you an idiot?" Annabelle shot back. "If that's the case, then you're the idiot, Nathan. Kidnapping me to threaten Ethan. You know how he treated me. Do you really think he'd give up the entire Hawthorne Corporation for me?" Nathan burst out laughing at her foolishness. At first, he'd had his doubts, but Jocelyn's story had enlightened him. "Oh, he will. He will admit he's an illegitimate son and give up the entire corporation for you." Jocelyn nodded in agreement. Annabelle thought they were all insane, driven mad by their greed. Seeing her confusion, Nathan kindly explained, "I'm Ethan's brother. I know him. My foolish little brother's way of liking someone is too clumsy. The people he truly hates, he won't even spare a glance. Like me, no matter how many times I sought him out, he never responded. So why would he make you go through so much pain? He hurt you because he hated you, and the reason he hated you is because he loved you." Annabelle had never thought of it that way. "My foolish brother hated you the most. He hated you for abandoning him when he was at his most miserable, for making him feel like all his love had been misplaced. That's why he loathed you so much. Annabelle, you loved Ethan for 10 years. How could you not understand something so simple? Ethan had always liked her. She had once thought so, but then he got engaged to Jocelyn, and she knew she had been terribly wrong. That he had loved her in his heart, she hadn't dared to imagine it. Come to think of it, back then, she had unilaterally decided that Ethan could never like her, only hate her. And she didn't want his pity because of her bone cancer. That's why she had tried to test his love for her in her own clumsy way before her life ended. But she had never considered that her actions had also intensified Ethan's hatred for her. If she had told Ethan she was pregnant sooner, if she had told him she was dying of bone cancer, if she had just explained one more time, would the outcome have been different? It seemed she didn't have the right to blame Ethan entirely anymore. At this thought, Annabelle began to cry. Nathan thought she was scared. "Don't worry, we're not going to kill you. We just hope my foolish little brother will hurry up and admit he's an illegitimate son and give the Hawthorne Corporation to me." A sudden noise came from outside the warehouse. A voice rang out, "Fine, I'll give up my position, but are you worthy of taking it?" Ethan stood outside the warehouse, his face devoid of any tension or worry. He was so calm that even his smile was faint and detached. He walked in, just as Nathan and Jocelyn had predicted, completely alone. "Ethan, get out of here." Annabelle's lack of cooperation infuriated Jocelyn. She raised her hand for another slap. A dark shadow passed over Ethan's eyes. The hand hidden in his pocket was already clenched into a tight fist. For Annabelle's safety, he had to endure. Ethan looked at Nathan, his smile amiable. "Tell me, what do you want? You publicly announce your identity as an illegitimate son, declare that you're giving up Hawthorne Corporation, and will let her go." Jocelyn jumped in, smiling. "No, I have another condition. Ethan, you will kneel before me right now and kiss my toes." She despised Ethan to her core. She wanted to trample all over him. Ethan chuckled. "Excuse me, who am I negotiating with here? I only deal with one person." Nathan instantly understood his meaning. It was a good thing he hadn't let Jocelyn harm Annabelle further. He stepped forward, placing himself between Annabelle and Jocelyn. The action made it clear to Ethan who was in charge. His gaze turned icy as he looked at Jocelyn. "The person I'm negotiating with is Nathan. Jocelyn, what are you?" He smiled, glancing at Nathan. "Brother, I can give you everything you want, but in return, my Annabelle must be returned to me without a single hair out of place. So what's with the slap mark on her face?" Ethan's words were cold, colder than a winter frost. Nathan raised his hand and slapped Jocelyn 3 times across the face. "Sorry, this is the only compensation I can offer." The slaps were heavy. Blood trickled from the corner of Jocelyn's mouth, but Ethan wasn't satisfied. For those who hurt Annabelle, he wanted to repay them tenfold. "Brother, I need to remind you of something. If it wasn't for this woman arranging a kidney transplant for me back then, I would have died from your knife that year. And if I had really died, the Hawthorne Corporation couldn't be left without an heir. In that case, brother, Nathan had always thought Ethan survived by sheer luck. He never imagined there was another layer to it. He shot a look of disgust at Jocelyn. Jocelyn stumbled back a step. "That kidney was Annabelle's, not mine. But Jocelyn, you're the one who arranged the surgery to save me. To thank you, I even promised to marry you." Ethan's words were so cold that Jocelyn felt a wave of terror and collapsed to the ground. Ethan stepped forward and stomped on her hand. "My dear Jocelyn, weren't you just so eager to be kissed? You lot," he said to the thugs, "can have your fun now. Kiss her all you want." The thugs immediately began to stir with anticipation. Jocelyn panicked. "Ethan, you can't do this to me." When he ignored her, she turned to Nathan. "Nathan, save me." Nathan was completely indifferent. He hated this woman too. If it weren't for her, his stabbing wouldn't have been in vain. A storm raged in Nathan's heart. He didn't want to waste any more time. He needed to get Hawthorne Corp quickly. He looked at Ethan and found him standing right in front of him. A sense of foreboding hit him. He reached for his gun, but his hand was caught by Ethan. Ethan's voice was mocking. "Brother, your moves are just as predictable as they were back then." Through the cameras, Tyler saw that Mr. Hawthorne had resolved the crisis. He quickly ordered his men to come in and clean up, only then realizing he was drenched in a cold sweat. Seeing that the situation was lost, Nathan burst into laughter. As expected, when it came to cunning, he was no match for Ethan. That stabbing years ago, it must have been intentional on Ethan's part. Because of that stab, he, the legitimate heir of the Hawthorne family, had become a criminal. To lose to Ethan twice, he conceded. After handing Nathan over to Tyler, Ethan rushed to Annabelle's side. He untied her ropes, and seeing her swollen wrists and face, his heart ached so much he was on the verge of tears. He pulled her into a tight hug. "Are you okay? I'm fine." She just felt sore all over and a little nauseous. Nothing was wrong. But his face was frighteningly pale. He had just donated bone marrow, just had surgery. His body must still be in a lot of pain. For him to go to such lengths for her, it was a lie to say she wasn't moved. But the wounds of the past were also real. Annabelle simply couldn't bring herself to entrust her love so easily. Her suspended hands didn't dare to embrace him back. Watching the tender scene of their reunion, Jocelyn's heart filled with a terrible, all-consuming hatred. She hated Annabelle for stealing what was hers, hated Annabelle for seeing her in such a wretched state. Perhaps because Jocelyn looked so pitiful, no one was paying attention to her. She reached into her pocket, her hand closing around a small knife, and lunged at Annabelle. Everyone was busy subduing the other criminals. No one noticed her movement. Just as Jocelyn's dagger was about to plunge into Annabelle's body, Ethan spun around, shielding Annabelle with his own body. The dagger sank into his abdomen. Blood spread, staining his shirt. "Ethan!" Annabelle screamed, her heart pounding in her throat. She had never felt fear like this before. Hospital emergency room. Ethan's injury was severe. He needed immediate surgery. But there were no available surgeons who could perform the operation. Annabelle was frantic, sobbing uncontrollably in the hospital corridor. Someone suddenly tapped her on the shoulder. Through her blurry vision, she saw who it was. It was Landon. The person who would perform Ethan's surgery was Landon Sterling. Annabelle waited anxiously outside the door. After several hours, the light above the emergency room finally went out. Landon emerged, still in his surgical scrubs. He looked at Annabelle, his expression helpless, and shook his head. His voice was low. "The patient isn't going to make it. He's hanging on by a thread. You should go see him one last time." "Not going to make it?" Hearing those words, Annabelle felt her legs give out. Landon wouldn't lie to her. Ethan was really dying. Annabelle felt her heart stop. She rushed into the room, her hands trembling as she approached his bed. His face was ashen. She choked back sobs. "Ethan, you're going to be okay, right?" Ethan coughed violently, his voice weak. "Annabelle, I'm so sorry for everything I did to you. I'm not asking you to forgive me, but I'm about to die. I don't want to go to the other side carrying your hatred. So, before I die, could you say you forgive me? Could you call me husband?" Annabelle was silent. Husband. It was the one word she had always wanted to call him but never dared. Fearing she would refuse, Ethan pressed on. "The child we lost, I can't bring her back. And what happened with Jocelyn when I was drunk, that can't be erased. But Annabelle, I hope you'll call me husband." Those harsh words in court, she had said them because she thought she was dying, that her hatred would soon be over. She'd said them in a moment of bravado, never imagining that medicine abroad would be so advanced and cure her. It wasn't actually that hard to forgive. Right now, she was just afraid. Afraid that if she said the words, he would be satisfied and let go, leaving her forever. But seeing Ethan's breath growing weaker, Annabelle gripped his hand tightly, not wanting him to leave with regrets. She cried out, "Yes, I forgive you. I forgive you, husband Ethan," deliberately acting as if he was fading, whispered, "You really forgive me? You won't take it back?" "Yes, I forgive you so, husband, please don't die." A glint of light flashed in Ethan's eyes. He sat up in bed and pulled Annabelle into a firm embrace. "Good, I'm not going to die, I'm going to be with you forever." After what happened today, Nathan and Jocelyn would never recover. He had also long since cleared Annabelle's name. This time, his Annabelle would stay by his side forever. Annabelle's mind was reeling. What was happening? A burst of laughter came from outside the room. Landon walked in, a friendly smile on his face. Annabelle felt the strength in the arms that held her and knew she had been tricked. She was annoyed. It was one thing for Ethan to do it, but Landon too. "Landon, I never thought you would lie to me." Her sincere words filled Landon with guilt. If it weren't for him, things would never have reached this point. "Annabelle, everyone lies. Some are white lies and some are malicious. I've been lying to you for a long time. I'm sorry. By the way, I heard Mr. Hawthorne say something about being blackout drunk when he was with Jocelyn." Ethan thought Landon was trying to provoke him. He pulled Annabelle closer, his gaze challenging. "What about it?" Landon smiled. "From a physiological standpoint, a man who is blackout drunk can't exactly complete a $300 million project. Besides, knowing Jocelyn, if she were really pregnant with a Hawthorne heir, she wouldn't have let that child be lost so easily. Ethan never thought he'd hear such pleasant words from Landon's mouth. He was overjoyed. So, even without this whole faking death charade, Annabelle would have forgiven him. He hadn't truly betrayed her. Thinking of how their hearts had finally connected after years of misunderstanding, he lowered his head and kissed her. After the kiss, Annabelle was clearly still angry after all. She was the one who'd been played. She glared at Ethan, but suddenly her stomach churned and she couldn't help but gag. Ethan panicked, leaping out of bed. "Annabelle, what's wrong? Landon, you have to check her." Landon calmly pushed his glasses up his nose. "It's just morning sickness." "What's morning sickness? Hurry up and examine her," Ethan said, too frantic to think straight. He saw that Annabelle seemed to be recovering and wasn't in serious distress. He processed the words. "Morning sickness? Are you saying Annabelle's pregnant? She's pregnant again? Ha ha." Annabelle had never thought she would see Ethan so happy he was like a child. It seemed she had never really known all of him. And now, even a child had quietly arrived, helping her make her decision. She smiled, and finally she reached out her hands and rested them on his broad ones. For 15 years, they had loved and hated, hurt and grieved. At this moment, after all the bitterness, sweetness had finally arrived.